Hi, I'm Ben.
And I'm Josh.
And this is the Bad at Magic podcast, a podcast about games, life, and other things. And welcome to episode 112.
So, Ben, I'm going to talk about this now because I just can't wait until episode 1123 to talk about it. I'm not sure if you can pick up what I'm putting down here, but I'm going to talk about the Fibonacci sequence, which for anybody that's not a big math nerd like I am, this is the sequence where you just add two numbers together, and then you just keep doing that. So it starts with 0, and then it goes to 1, and then you add 0 and 1, you get 1. So now it's 0, 1, 1. And then you add the last two, so it's 1 and 1, so it goes to 2, and then it's 2 and 1 for 3, and then 2 and 3 for 5, and then 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, 233, 377, 610, 987, 1,597, 2,584, and then 4,181.
Okay, so I've always found this number sequence to be so weird. Like, it's not the nice, orderly numerical sequences we're used to, like a geometric sequence of, just multiplying or squaring a number where they have a very predictable one. This has lots of weird numbers in it.
So this is one of those, I watch a lot of really nerdy math videos on YouTube, and I love them to death because I feel like there are certain things in math that become so strange. It's like you're looking at, like you love this phrase a lot. You're looking at the code of the Matrix. There are certain things in math where it feels like, oh, we can't really explain why this is a thing, but it is definitely a thing in the universe that we observe. And it's almost like we're looking at bits of the source code, or we're pointing out parts of the physics engine that are running this simulation that we live in.
Yeah. Even as intelligent beings who invented a numerical system for describing things, you can see this occurring naturally in the world around us without math.
Yes, and so the Fibonacci sequence shows up in nature quite a bit, like in weird places. Like if you look at the branching of trees, the number of leaves that are on stems, flowering of artichokes, some pine cones will follow this sequence if you count the number of little ridges on the pine cone. It just keeps randomly popping up. And what's weird is it also does the same thing in math, where mathematicians will be studying different things, like totally random stuff. A bunch of computer scientists will be like searching through the most efficient sort algorithms, and all of a sudden their math starts leaning towards this Fibonacci sequence in their results. And it's weird how it keeps popping up in random places like this.
Okay, I love it. That I know this is unrelated, but it kind of is. There was this scene in Wayne's World, the movie from back in the mid-90s, where like Garth is just talking to Wayne, and all of a sudden Wayne gets a funny look on his face and looks at Garth and goes, "Dude, that was a haiku."
Exactly. That's exactly what happens in math. Like some mathematician will be studying some weird computer science thing, and some guy will walk up behind him and be like, "Oh, working on the Fibonacci sequence?" "No, I'm working on the most efficient heap sorting method." "Where did the Fibonacci sequence come from? How did this even happen?"
Yeah. Okay. Well, and so it's 112 because the first three numbers, if you discount 0, are 112.
Yes, I always discount 0 when you're talking about Fibonacci sequences, and most people do. So yes, 1, 1 added together gets 2, so you get 112. Again, I will probably talk about this sequence again if we ever get to episode 1123.
Awesome. All right, Josh, there's something we need to follow up on from the last one, because I did something that, frankly, is a personal failing of mine, and I'm glad we don't actually have any real impetus to fact check on this program, other than that I think one of the abiding values of the Bad at Magic podcast is curiosity about the world around us and a healthy respect for the truth.
That is such a great way to gauge, hey, we screwed up in the last episode, here's the right information.
Yeah. So you were talking about the fact, because we were talking about 111. There's a few things we missed about 111 we need to catch up on. One of them is that in a cricket match, they call multiples of 111 and Nelson, referring to Lord Nelson, and that then they would do something superstitious based on the fact that it's the 111. And you established, and I looked it up and verified it, that even if they say Ed Nelson is supposed to be 111 because he had one eye, one arm, and one leg, where did the one leg thing come from? And I looked, and you're right. There's no evidence whatsoever that he ever had any kind of problem with his leg.
So you just wanted to fact check the fact that having one leg was the myth part of the whole thing?
Yes, and being in England, you can't help but absorb some of the mythos that is Lord Nelson. And so in an effort to try to appear well-educated on the subject, I pretended to know his first name, and I was wrong.
What is his first name?
It's Horatio.
Oh, Oh, such classic High Admiralty of the British Navy.
It's great. And as if that wasn't good enough, when you try to nail down what to actually call him, the morass of honorifics and lordship that is this man is just, I couldn't unravel it. I couldn't. I tried. He goes by like 6 or 7 different titles. Lord Horatio, the first Viscount Nelson, first Duke of Bronte, the Right Honorable, the Viscount Nelson. You have to say both thes in that phrase.
Hang on a second.
Sir
hang on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but you cannot say Viscount one more time. It's Viscount, my man.
Oh, man. See? What happened to the S in that phrase? We're 2 levels deep here.
I'm not gonna razz you for that because there are way too many words that I've only ever read and then said out loud incorrectly and get called out on, and I hate it when that happens. So just know it's Viscount.
Okay, I'll get it right this next time in the next one. Sir Horatio Nelson, Viscount Nelson of the Nile and Burnham Thorpe, or Baron Nelson of the Nile and Burnham Thorpe. All those are correct titles of him, but it based on the circumstances, one would be correct and the others would be incorrect, and I have no idea what those are or how to unravel that.
I see. It's all contextual and geographical, apparently. Honestly, he sounds like a Dungeons and Dragons character that was allowed to level up too far, and he just accumulated all of these honors.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, the mythos behind him losing his eye, and technically he still had it. He just couldn't see out of it anymore. There's a quote about when he lost his arm. In the Battle of Santa Cruz de Tenerife, his right arm was injured by grape shot and shattered his humerus. Upon arriving at his ship, he refused to be helped aboard, declaring, "Let me alone. I have yet legs left and one arm. Tell the surgeon to make haste and get his instruments. I know I must lose my right arm. The sooner it is off, the better."
There is no way that actually happened. That sounds like one of those elaborate retelling of a story that gets told so many times. There was an old, I love this commercial so much. I saw it when I was a kid. There's some football players. They were retired and they're sitting on a porch. Hey, remember that one time I kicked that 20-yard field goal and there was a breeze and I had sprained my toe that day? Oh yeah, that was pretty good. And then they're telling their kids, yeah, it was the fourth quarter, the winning kick. It was 40 yards away and it was pouring rain and he had just twisted his ankle. And they're telling their grandkids, he's like, it was a blizzard from 60 yards and a full leg cast. I think that's what happened with Lord Admiral
This is that.
Nelson.
I mean, this man is just imbued with so much mythos of the British Empire. I mean, whether or not it's actually true, he defeated the French fleet and the combined Spanish and Italian fleets. He just dominated in naval combat, but he didn't come away unscathed. So if you look in the notes, and I'll put this on our Facebook page in the photo album I make with every episode, there's this classical painting of him injured in combat, and it looks like Washington crossing the Delaware. I mean, it's just insane.
Is he standing there directing his troops while the surgeon is sawing off his arm?
Well, according to the myth, most of his right arm was amputated, and within a half hour, he'd returned to issuing orders to his captains.
So part of me wants to say there's no way that would happen because of the shock-induced trauma that he would have. His brain would just go into shutdown in order to preserve its vital functions. But that's also about the time when opium was really a thing in the British Empire, so they just could have hopped him up on every drug known to man and had him on his feet in no time.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened. Anyway, there's one other thing we need to set straight in the record about 111, and that is, on this program where we pride ourselves on being a bit nerdy, there was one other golden opportunity you could have chosen with the number 111 that you passed up, so I'm going to give you a second chance, Josh.
Ben. And it's funny because it was just a total blind spot for me. I just completely blew past it. And
how did you find it later?
You told me.
Oh, okay. All right.
But as soon as you said it, it's one of those things we missed this about 111. And then all of the lore just unlocks in my brain. I should have known this a bunch of different ways. And for every Tolkien nerd that was screaming at their podcast player and unsubscribed to us because I completely missed this fact, Bilbo Baggins at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, one of the opening chapters is his 111th birthday.
Yep.
My bad for missing one fictitious character that turned the number that I was looking for, and I missed it in all of my searching. That's my I should have got it because it's Tolkien and he's the grandfather of all
I
high
love
fantasy.
that Tolkien opened with inventing a word for a fictional number. It was 11D1.
I mean, it makes sense. It's 1, 1, and 1. Let's just say the 11 part first. Is it just going to be 11D2 after that?
Well, Josh, welcome to episode 11D2 of the Bad at Magic podcast. I am at the conclusion of my deployment to Kuwait. This will be the last episode that we'll record with me on the other side of the world. After this, I'll be back in the States.
Yeah, and your internet connection will probably be worse.
You're likely true. It's customary, and I'm going to do something here on the podcast that we would do in our career, and that is it's customary for an officer when he's ending his tour to give an end of tour report. I want to give an end of tour report. When I got to Louisiana, and at the time they assign you to one of your what we call AEF buckets. That's Air Expeditionary Force buckets. Basically, it's the rotation that you'll be on for when you're vulnerable to deploy. It doesn't mean you will deploy, but it means the time that we will be considering you to deploy will fall on this schedule. And usually it's about a 2-year schedule. This 6-month window in this 2-year time frame, this is when you're likely to deploy. Doesn't mean they can't deploy you at other times, but that's when you're probably going to go.
Imagine taking all the kids on the playground and putting them on the carousel, and then slowly turning that carousel, and you're only allowed to pick people to come play your horrible dodgeball game if they are facing you on the carousel. And so everybody on the carousel is just kind of like clenched and nervous, like, don't pick me, don't pick me, don't pick me, until they rotate out of sight. And like, oh, good, I'm good for another rotation.
Yes. Wow, I love that. Okay, I'm going to keep using it because when you bring new people to put them on the carousel to potentially play in the dodgeball game, you can't put them all in the same quarter. You've got to spread them out evenly on the 4 quarters of the carousel so that then when it comes time, you have a sufficient manpower pool.
Yes, you can't have overload one of them and then not have anybody on the next one. That's just not fair.
Oh, and not only that, but then if you're trying to do a home base mission and then the deployment cycle comes and you deploy everyone, now you're broken.
Well, that's what the Army does. They just send the whole base and they close everything down.
Yeah, but they don't have a home base mission. They don't have a bomber wing that operates out of their home station.
Well, I guess that's true. The bomber wing has to stay at home station. The whole wing doesn't get deployed. Maybe it'd be easier if it did. That's a discussion for another day, though.
Yeah, but that gets right at the heart of why we have separate branches of the military, why the U.S. Air Force didn't just remain the U.S. Army Air Corps. We needed our own culture and our own deployment model. So here we are.
We needed our own budget. That's the only reason.
Spoken like a true CPA. Okay, so I'm here at the end of my tour. It all happened exactly like I planned. I got to Louisiana in the summer of 2021, and my supervisor said, "What AEF bucket do you want to be in?" And I said, "I want to be in X2 because that means I will be vulnerable to deploy in the summer of 2023, which is right before I retire." Not because I could have picked the next one, and which time I would have had my retirement paperwork in hand and I could have conceivably gotten out of it. But I wanted to go one last time before I retire. I planned it that way.
Aw, look at you. Just want to just give back as much as you can to the freedom and the cause. Nothing to do with all the tax-free income right before you separate from the military.
You know me, Josh. I won't even say one way or the other whether that was even part of the calculus. But as you like to point out, a lot of the decisions we make in life aren't based on a single factor, but they're a weighted average.
Yes.
What you just described was a small part of my weighted average, but non-zero.
Well spoken.
There's a scripture in the Bible that describes a political situation that existed when the Jews were subjugated to the Roman Empire. Under Roman law, a Roman could demand that a Jew help them just if they saw someone passing. If you're passing a Roman walking down the road, they could point and say, "You, Jew, I'm going to my destination. I'm carrying this heavy thing. I want you to carry it with me." Under Roman law, they could demand that it be carried 1 mile.
Okay.
And then the Jew could put it down, and they fulfilled their legal obligation. They were no longer required to do anything else. In the famous speech known as the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, "And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain." You may have heard it said. It's become a common idiom in English. Go the second mile. Have you heard that?
I don't think I have. But again, I'm not a person to talk to about empathy. So
I know, but we have ones. It's not about empathy. We have things like this that are started as part of like biblical Christian culture and then just become in wide circulation. This is one. To go the second mile. It's the idea that when you're compelled to do something, you can regain control by doing it voluntarily.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, all right. So the version of this that I've recently adopted in my life, this is really stupid, but we watched the second Avatar movie, The Way of Water. And that whole movie was what it was. But there was one scene where there was this boat captain, and he is being basically conscripted by the military forces. And the captain's mad about it, and he's arguing with him. He doesn't want to do it. And then finally, he looks at the guy with the mean look on his face. He goes, well, if you can't get out of it, get into it. Let's go, dudes. We're doing this thing. And like he was just on board 100% from that point forward. And I like in the moment watch that movie like I really like that. If you can't get out of it, get into it.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm saying here. I could see my career winding down. I could see my chances of promotion dropping to, single digits and every promotion cycle that came around. And I was just like, you know what? I can regain some control here. If I can't get out of it, get into it. I like deploying. I'm not going to come up involuntarily, but I can volunteer to go and get into it and have a good time one last time before I retire.
I'm so sorry, Alicia, that this happened at this point in your guys' life.
She kind of saw it coming. She tried to resist a little bit and be like, but you don't have to, and I don't want you to. And then she kind of just like her shoulders drooped and her head hung down. She's like, but I'm not going to be able to talk you out of it, am I?
All right, so you said like she kind of saw it coming. All I could imagine in my mind was one day at the dinner table, you were like glaring at that group of rowdy children in the next room drinking, I don't know, what do you drink? Not even soda, like a nice cold iced tea or something. And then just like, I could really do with a 4-month vacation to a war-torn country.
It's funny to call it war-torn because Kuwait, is a third world country masquerading as a first world country by any means. But the base that we're on, fascinatingly, we bombed the hell out of it when we came and kicked the Iraqis out of here. So all over this base, there are bunkers with giant holes in the roof that we made.
This is what happens right here. So that's actually a class that I took at the academy. Is one of the lessons about the civil engineering was this is how you bomb an airstrip to make it the least capable with the least amount of bombs. Like what is the optimal number? Like what's the minimum number of 500 pounders I can drop on this airstrip and make it completely unusable as an airstrip? So if the Americans bombed that airfield and the runway is still fine, there's a reason.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we bombed all the bunkers that their jets were in, but we left the airfield alone.
And then all of a sudden, how did this happen? It's our airfield now. Oh, what a strange coincidence. Yeah.
Okay, so I gotta come like I wanted to. In a biblical sense, I'm going the second mile. Like this is not easy to do this. Like staying at home would have been a much lower overall level of effort on my part as I'm nearing the end of my career. But by coming here, I got to end on my terms. In a weird way, even though the Air Force had chosen not to promote me, I still got to go out on my own terms, and I did it by giving more rather than less.
Aw, look at you.
It felt like there was still one last contribution I had to offer, and it made it worthwhile for me and for the Air Force. Now, little did I know, but Hamas was going to attack Israel and turn this TDY into a deployment where we're actually under threat of attack and still are.
That's interesting. Like, has that, other than obviously the increased ops tempo, like you're doing more work presumably. I'm not going to ask you about that, but has it changed like any other way? Has there been any talk of like, well, we need to plus up forces? Has there been any talk of, well, we can't be letting people separate at this moment, like with all this tension. We need to retain as much military capability as we possibly can.
Yeah, that's a really good question. As far as like broad stroke society, like are we talking about reinstituting the draft or doing stop loss? I mean, none of that's kind of happening. The differences in manpower that we're talking about right now are still within like the margin of error of just the available forces. It's not even that much of a strain.
Got it.
But from a broad socio-political standpoint, we were here doing the kind of thing we're doing like still in Japan and Korea and Europe, where we have a forward presence. It's become the American doctrine of military deployment. We maintain this forward presence to help sustain the world order that we've agreed is optimal for us and for our allies.
Well, and at the same time, like if you need to project power, you need to be there. 2, if you're already there, it's a lot easier to get there. And 3, you don't want to fight the bullet in your front lawn. You want to fight them in the playground, way over there, where your mom can't see.
Right. All 3 of those things, perfect, exactly. Like we technically things have reached a level of stability where we could say, all right, our job is done here, we're going home, and then if the bad guys kick off, it's harder for us to get back, harder for us to gain a foothold, harder for us to establish the conditions we want. And so we've decided it's in our national interest to just stay in the first place, not go.
Yeah, and then the longer you're there, like the better the pool can get, the better the gym can get. Put in a golf course at some point, just make it nice.
Those are true.
Also, hang on, I got to get my cynical piece of this too.
Sure.
So with the separation between the home forces under the training commands and then the deployed forces that are under the combatant commands, now we also get this healthy rotation where people that are back home doing the home mission get to spend a little bit of their time downrange, like, this is going to sound very cynical, but like accruing accolades, like, oh yeah, I did the real mission for like 6 months. I get a little bit of experience. Maybe that'll be applied in the real world, but most likely I just did the same job, but in a different place. But that justifies like all of the extra ribbons and medals that I get, and it's just good for career progression, and it's also nice to break up the routine mundanity of being at home station for multiple years in a row. There's a lot of like tertiary benefits to having this constant in and out rotation into a more active or a more combatant, like, I don't know, like an actual real world mission type place.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. I kind of agree with what you said, minus the cynicism. I think, you just kind of need a thing. Now, short of us actually like secretly drumming up some kind of conflict that would escalate into a hot war just to keep our skills fresh, it's, you deal with the conflict that's available.
I will, yes, you deal with what you have available. And I'm not going to say that we drum up conflicts just so we can train military leaders. But if you look back at the timetables of things that have kicked off around the world, like it's funny how the big major conflicts, the people that are like majors and lieutenant colonels in those conflicts end up being our like primary leaders, like generals and upper echelons when the next thing kicks off. And it's just kind of this generational cycle.
Very interesting. Yeah, when I was at Langley Air Force Base working for the 4-star, he was a Vietnam era pilot. He was like the oldest member of the military, and he still just had that perspective and background.
Yeah, that's a lot of military like leadership and doctrinal books that you'll read will say that we're always one war behind. Like all of our tactics, all of our doctrine, we're geared and we're prepared for the last war that we just fought. And this is kind of part of that, is because the people that are in charge, their only quote unquote real world operational experience is fighting the last war. Yeah.
Now, I want to kind of take issue with what you've said, and I think that ideally a well-apportioned, trained, active military deters conflict to the point where it never, ever actually occurs. And you could say that, oh, you're only doing your job when you're actually fighting, but if fighting actually breaks out, it's a little bit of a failure. Like, you failed to deter, you failed to establish the conditions that would continue the promotion of peace.
Is that a failure on the military's part or the diplomatic piece? Because we are just a projection of, like, we're the sword that the politicians draw.
Yes, there's diplomatic and economic and other instruments of power that are used to maintain and promote peace, and those can break down, and then you resort to the military.
This goes back to my schoolyard. Man, I'm sticking with this analogy all day. It's working so well. It's the same thing I tell my kids. Like, you do everything in your possibility to de-escalate, tell someone else, get a higher authority involved. But if all of that goes out the window, you defend yourself with your fists and you throw hands. And that's exactly what this is. We have all of these other tools to project power into the world, and only as a last resort do we have actually breaking stuff and killing people.
Yeah. But when you're not actively doing that and you're present, there's a mission that has to happen, and that was the mission I was coming into when I got here.
Right.
Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait is U.S. CENTCOM's theater gateway for political and diplomatic and geographic reasons, but we're here as a logistics depot to move things and people in and out of theater. And while we're doing that, we're promoting our relationships with the Middle Eastern nations that are here, as well as our coalition allies that have also chosen to be forward deployed like us. And so when I got here for the first 4 months, that's what we were doing, was just solidifying our position, choosing building our relationships with our partners, choosing the location for our golf course, all those kinds of things.
This is no small feat either. Like the logistics, you talk to people that think military is cool, and they'll talk about like, oh yeah, because we've got the greatest fighter jets, or we've got the coolest tanks. The real answer why America's military is the greatest in the world, because we can move a lot of stuff anywhere very quickly.
You're right. It's logistics. It totally is. So I got here, and that's what we were doing. Last week, my replacement had been chosen. I trained him up. He's good to go. He's in the seat, and we've reached the point where like me hanging around and sitting next to him while he like checks emails and puts appointments on the calendar is just intrusion. So I'm starting to feel like
Do you want to use a very in that sentence? I feel like a critical is going to be better served in this sentence of this email.
Yeah, that would just be so bad. So today's Sunday. I was sitting there at lunch, eating by myself. The life as an exec can be kind of lonely sometimes because you don't really have, when you're the commander's exec, you don't really have any. Well, your only peers are like the other people in the front office, and they're different than you.
And nobody likes you. You're the person that sends all the nastygrams. You're the person, like, if I get an email from the commander's exec, that means I've got to do stuff now.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there by myself, and then the commander came and sat across from me, and then the chief did, and then the deputy sat across from me, and all of a sudden I was eating lunch with the front office on a Sunday when we hadn't planned it, and they just all came to sit by me, which one just shows the level of camaraderie and companionship we have up there, which is ideal. Like, you don't always have that, but man, it's so nice when you do. I was so happy to see them. It wasn't like, oh, I was having this comfortable lunch by myself and now I gotta like put on my I'm eating lunch with the commander thing. No, it was just like a good friend that I didn't know had time. I didn't know if they had time for me, came and sat down across from me, and I was so happy to see them.
Ooh, and you see, I'm thinking from the other side, like, oh, look at that poor major sitting over all by himself because everyone hates him. Come on, guys, let's go sit next to him and be nice.
Even if I was a pound puppy that got adopted, I'm okay with that. So I came here thinking that, and I've had opportunities to, I want to close my thought on that one, and that is that the Air Force, sometimes in spite of itself, still manages to find and promote and put in positions of power really, really good people. Just salted the earth, objectively kind, thoughtful, intelligent, hardworking people that are trying to do the right things for the right reasons and take care of the airmen.
That's too wholesome. I don't want to fight you on that.
Okay, good. So the other thing is, and there's plenty of room for criticism here, so I'll throw you a softball. The other thing is, I'm involved in executing the objectives of our country, as foggy as those can be sometimes. And you kind of have to find out what your own motivation's going to be. What are we doing here? Even if some of the reasons is just we're protecting the country that has the oil that we need for our economy to turn, we're still doing it in a nice way. Like, we're not just here exploiting them. We're friends with them. We're developing our relationships and protecting them. And I don't know.
There is a couple of guys from the War Department back in World War II that made all the propaganda posters that went up into every U.S. factory across the nation that are high-fiving each other right now because, like, yes, we got the message out that some lowly guy getting paid barely minimum wage, barely livable wages, like just turning the wrench on this sprocket that goes into a tank, they get to look up at the sky and go, I'm helping fight the Nazis. Like, that's exactly the kind of sentiment that you just threw down.
Yeah. Okay, but I want to reverse engineer that. Do you think that the guy turning the wrench on the tank in the factory back home in World War II shouldn't feel connected to the conflict? I don't think that's unjustified.
Well, it's. I don't think it's unjustified. I think the other way around is the problem. Is when you're the upper echelon, like when from the top down, the organization or the big bureaucracy is pushing you harder and using that as the justification. Like, hey, we need you to work 2 extra hours on your shift. We can't pay you, but we need those tanks, and our boys downrange really need them, and you're the one that's keeping the war going. Like that's it's too easy.
I get it.
It's too easy to
Idealism
exploit.
is a substitute for economic incentives.
Well, I don't. And this is completely abstract, coming out of nowhere. I'm just thinking, like, those kinds of things make me nervous. Any kind of propaganda where you're trying to make me feel about my work makes me nervous, because, like, I shouldn't have to feel my work. I should just do my work. If you are incentivizing me correctly, then I am doing everything that you want me to do. If you're coming down on me with cultural type aspects, what that means is that you don't want to pay me more to get more productivity out of me.
Yeah, kinda. I mean, it's a multi-pronged approach. Like, no one thing works for every person. There are some people that economic incentives aren't ever going to be the motivation for them, what they're doing, and some that idealism would never be their source of motivation. And what is the reason that we're here in the Middle East doing what we're doing? Does anyone even know? I'll tell you what I think it is. Gosh, I can't even nail that down. I mean,
well, you're at a logistics base that's at, like you said, you're the doorstep into this troubled region that has historically been problematic for every major world power. It makes sense to have a robust logistics capacity that can easily flex in any direction within, I don't know how many thousand-mile radius, to service any kind of combatant force that has to show up in any of those regions.
Yeah, well said. So even if the motivation is selfish in origin, it's still good things. So here on this base, we also have a forward deployed presence from the Canadians, from the Italians, from the Danish, from the British, sometimes the Norwegians, NATO, a whole bunch of other things. And more so than any other tour I've had, my opportunities to be closely involved with those people have been high here. And the Kuwaitis as well. Like when I was in Qatar twice, I just didn't feel at all connected or like I had a relationship with them. But with the Kuwaitis, I definitely have. And even if, I don't know, I think that we're genuine in our friendships with people. And even if underlying all of us is some kind of broad, faceless, unpersonal economic relationship, on a personal level with the people I'm interacting with, we're friends. We're friends with those people in every meaningful way.
That's a good point. That's a good place to take it. Let's step away from this thing that I'm easily cynical about, which is the organization not paying you enough. Let's focus in on you, on Ben Rich. Do you feel personally enriched from this deployment? Like, not just economically, but like in all those facets. Like, you're talking about the friends that you made and the experiences you've had. Was it worth it?
Donald Rumsfeld received no end of the crap for his what was it, the known knowns, the known unknowns, the unknown knowns, and the unknown unknowns.
Yep.
But the more I think about that, the more I realize that every one of those categories is valid. And I'll tell you what's a known unknown when I come on a deployment. I know that when I come out, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to make friends with people that I didn't know existed that will probably last for the rest of my life. That's a known unknown. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they come from, but I know that it's going to happen.
Ugh, that sounds so gross. Like people.
So as I was leaving, I think as most people do, I had some goals. I anticipated this deployment. I longed for it. I came on it because I wanted to be here. And along with that, I knew I would get a big pile of slack. Now, I'm working more hours than I did back home, but with that, I also simplified my life by not having to fix the car or cook dinner.
Yeah. We've talked about that before. Deployments are great because it's crazy how many hours in a day you get back because you don't have to grocery shop, because you don't have to worry about preparing your own meals, because you don't have to, like, I don't even know.
Fix the house.
Yeah, all the little honeydew stuff that happens. There's no commute. You just walk to work. It's 2 minutes away. Like, all of that time it's so inconsequential individually, but when you add it all together, you just feel like you have all of this time. Oh, the parenting. Let's not even get started on the parenting. There's no parenting to be done downrange. You don't have any kids when you're downrange. You don't have to worry about if the chores got done. You don't have to, like, interact with them and, like, make sure that they're achieving all their objectives. Oh, you should probably, like, talk to them like people every once in a while. Like, all of that just goes away.
So with all of that slack that just dropped in my lap, because this is my 5th deployment, I anticipated it. I knew I would get it. I was expecting it. And I was thinking up front, what am I going to spend this slack on? What am I going to use it for? So I have this little piece of paper that sits here on my desk right in front of me that you've never seen. That's like all my goals that I'd written down. It's in 4 quadrants.
Okay, hang on. Turn that back around. Show that to the camera. Listeners, like this should not have been a surprise to me. It should not be a surprise to anybody. Ben has broken this down as a very colorful, excellently organized infographic, and at the dead center of the thing is a picture of the man himself, Jesus Christ.
Okay, so and the 4 quadrants are spiritual, social, physical, and intellectual. So I picked goals in each of those arenas of things I wanted to accomplish when I was out here. I had some reading goals and some intellectual goals, and I accomplished 3 of the 4 of them. Let's say I wanted to lose 30 pounds.
3 of the 4 of the quadrants or the physical?
Yeah, 3 of the 4 quadrants.
Okay.
I wanted to lose 30 pounds. I did. I feel really healthy. I've reached, I think, the limits of my cardiovascular exercise, which I've now realized are not physical, but rather mental. I just get bored if I run more than about 20 miles a week.
Dude, like losing 30 pounds is an amazing achievement. Like if you lost any more weight, you'd be losing bones at this point.
Yeah, so happy about that. The one area that I wanted to do that I really just wasn't able to do was I'd set some goals to do some writing. Specifically, I intend to write a memoir about the story that I told in episode 9 of the Bad at Magic podcast. And I started and I made a little bit of progress, but I realized that the intellectual resources that I need to marshal to do that focused, sustained, deliberate writing are the exact same mental and emotional resources that are required for my job.
Yeah. This is so I've actually talked to a lot of people about this when I was flying Pred, because
I'm interested in your thoughts on it.
So I have this outline of a book in my head that I've had forever. It would be terrible. No one would buy it, but I've always wanted to like get it out onto paper. And in that I'm a research focused guy. And so I would research like, I just don't want to sit down and write. Like I hate writing. Whenever I would write a chapter of this book, I would go back and I would look at it and be like, oh, this is terrible. I would scrap it and like start from scratch because it would be easier than just rewrite or than fixing the pieces that I didn't like. And this is a normal thing. This is something that aspiring writers struggle with, apparently. And there's all of these tools and exercises and techniques that exist on the internet to help you break through this.
Really?
Yes. Like just lessons learned from everybody that's struggling to do this kind of writing.
Okay, before you get too deep into it, I want to use a metaphor. So like if I was a professional runner and my job was from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday to run all day, and then when I get off work, if my goals were to like do more running, you've depleted your resources at that point. You just don't have anything left to give.
Yeah. I struggle with a different part, is that I hate everything that I would write. And it takes time. Like just like any other thing, this is something that's important to me. I need to dedicate time to it. That's always the first hurdle. If it's legitimately important to you, you need to dedicate time for it. And that's tough to do in our fast-paced digital world, because you get on TikTok and all of a sudden it's 20 minutes later and like, oh crap, where did my 20 minutes go? One of the best things that I saw was they had this challenge, and it was I think it was for the month of November. A bunch of challenges happened in the month of November, apparently. This is one of them, and it's just right. And the goal was to write 1,000 words a day. It doesn't matter if they're good. It doesn't matter if they're going to make the final cut. The point is to just get it out of your brain and onto a piece of paper. And they make it a challenge, like just write 1,000 words a day, every day in the month of November. And the idea is to just build this habit of not trying to edit constantly, not trying to second guess what you're putting down into paper, but just to get into the habit of writing these things down. Because
did you do that this month?
I did not do that this month. I did this in the month of November in like 2011 or something.
Oh, okay.
But that's the tool. The exercise is to get you used to the idea of you can edit to death, but you can't edit things that aren't written down. And so just extract it from your brain, get it onto the piece of paper. If that's the part that you're struggling with, you just have to do it. And so
do you have something that you produced in November of 2011?
Let me see if I can find it. It's in here. It's right here.
Wow.
It's in this drawer. It is in a green notebook. Don't Don't tell my boss from 10 years ago, but I was supposed to be paying 100% rapt attention to the targets that I was performing intelligence collection on. But instead, I wrote many pages of the first chapter, like a prologue.
Dude, I don't know. I think you need to have something like that to maintain your sanity if you're supposed to be flying a plane that's on autopilot 99% of the time.
It is on autopilot 99% of the time. And I remember, this is the example I give to people. There was a night that I was flying with a brand new person. Like, he was the guy that sat in the seat next to me, and he controls the cameras. And we're flying out to our target, and he goes, and he's brand new. Like, this is his first day at work. And we are still like dozens of miles from where we're going. He's like, I'm going to see if I can get it, because he's chomping at the bit and he's new and he's excited. And he's like, I'm like, all right, yeah, go for it. And he's like looking around this town. He's like, oh, I can't quite see it. And I go, stop. Okay. Go left 2 houses, go up a house, zoom in right there. And then he goes maximum zoom, and he goes, yeah, that's it. How did you know that? I'm like, I have been staring at this house every day for the last 3 months. I could identify it in my sleep. I have dreamed about this house. Yes, I know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of state that you get into, where it's like, I am going to go insane if I don't have an outlet. And so I have probably the first... it's like the first half of this notebook is filled with my first 2 chapters of the book that I will never write.
Okay, I want to pull at this thread for a minute, Josh, because what you described was a very special set of circumstances that gave you access to the kind of slack you needed to do that.
That's true. I had slack.
Can you conceive of when that might happen again, or a way that you could manufacture it artificially?
So this is the problem.
That's what you were reading about, I assume, when you were talking about these other people on the internet trying to get through this barrier.
Well, for me specifically, at that time, my son was born in 2011, so I didn't have kids yet. And so I had all of the slack that parents don't have, or that parents don't have. This is the same problem I'm having with my hobbies right now. That, yes, can I foresee a future when I have all this slack back? And the answer is yes. And that's when both of my kids are in high school and semi-independent and have their own vehicles and take care of their own responsibilities. In the meantime, that's me. I'm still the guy that takes them to dance class. I'm still the guy that takes them to Krav Maga. One of the ways you can build slack...
Krav Maga? Wow.
Oh, here's another tangent. Yes, both of my children...
You're teaching your daughter how to throat punch people?
Both of my children are going to Krav Maga classes twice a week. And Krav Maga is the Israeli Defense Force martial art. And it is a no-nonsense. It is not a tournament thing. It is just...
Right. It's not known for its artistry and beauty. It's just known for efficiency.
It borrows from a bunch of different martial arts. And the idea is to kill somebody as efficiently and easily as possible. And to defend yourself as quickly and easily as possible. So we enrolled my daughter. Kind of
what they're doing right now.
We enrolled my daughter because she is a 9-year-old female, and unfortunately, these are skills that she should have as she's growing up as a female in this world. And my son is going because he wasn't doing anything else, and he just needed something to do after school. And so, yeah, we got to do the parent participation night where my daughter, heel stomped me a bunch of times. And it was fun, and she's enjoying it, and she's learning some skills that could be valuable.
Family togetherness.
But I mentioned it because I have built slack into that schedule. They go twice a week. They're in that class for an hour. I drop them off, and then I immediately go on a 3-mile run, in the neighborhood where the store is, and I come back. That is me building slack into my schedule. I have this dead time where my kids are in this place. I can do something with that for myself. And so could I fill that with other things? Possibly. But there's so few of those opportunities in my life that you have this list. These are all the things that I want to accomplish. And writing this book that's been in my head for 24 years is way low on that priority list.
Well, Josh, I hope you get the opportunity someday. To me, it sounds like you haven't given up on the dream that you'll finish it yet.
It'll be my Marty McFly's dad's moment where the box shows up at the house and he opens it and it's a copy of his book.
That's beautiful, Josh. I love that image. I hope I live to see that.
It'll be one of the books that you read because I ask you to read, and then you'll come on the podcast and talk about how trash it was.
But I won't say your name. I'd be like, my friend asked me to read this book, and I really value the friendship, but man, that was a bad book.
We have gone far afield. We were talking about the end of your deployment, and what are you doing with that?
So Okay, so when I planned, I've been planning this for 3 years. So I'm out here 3 years later. I got all the things I got. In many ways, I exceeded my expectations, exceeded my goals, did everything I want. I have this one failure that I kind of anticipated would be a failure, and maybe the anticipation contributed to it. But now I have to just reckon with that. Like, am I okay with the fact that I'm going back home and I didn't do this one thing that I thought I would be able to do and ultimately couldn't?
Hang on. There are no failures. There are only happy accidents. Stop calling it a failure. What you did was you discovered something about yourself. You discovered that even with the extra slack that only exists in this kind of deployed environment, you struggled to sit down and actually do all of this creative writing that you want to do, that you value. So take that for what it is. That is an Edison moment. You have discovered something that fails. Like, just having slack isn't enough for you to accomplish this goal that you want to accomplish. Or
it wasn't the right kind of slack.
Yeah, exactly. So then take those steps. You've identified another problem or another hurdle that you didn't know existed before. That's a success. That's a minor step in the direction that you want to go.
All right. Well, to wrap it all up, I'm glad I came. I thank my wife for her patience and forbearance, as you always very astutely point out, that she's probably the biggest victim of my aspirations to do this kind of thing. But I'm a little bit sad, kind of bittersweet to be at the end of my final deployment in my Air Force career, because I like expeditionary operations. I like being at the proverbial tip of the spear with all the other people that also have simplified their life to come over here and focus on this one thing that we're doing together. And 6 weeks ago, a conflict broke out, and instead of our position here being maintaining this theoretical presence for promoting stability in the region, we went to actively doing it. To actively promoting stability in the region because war had broken out, and our threat increased and our operations tempo changed. But it's what we were here to do, and we were ready. And nobody could have foreseen that. In fact, very few people actually did. But it felt right. It felt like a good place to kind of end my contribution here at the end of my career.
I will say, if you're looking for a capstone for your time in the military, you could really ask for more than being at a deployed base when something kicked off. I mean, that really feels like you're just tying a neat bow on, like, this is what I did to serve my country.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Josh, it's time for a Bad at Technology segment. There's a couple of things. I don't know if these have come into your sphere, but there's a couple of things I want to talk about. One of them is called Amazon Sidewalk. I just heard about this kind of in a roundabout way. Have you heard of Amazon Sidewalk?
I have not. Reading this note in the show notes right now is the first time I'm hearing about Amazon Sidewalk.
Do you have your tinfoil hat handy?
Ben, you're assuming I ever took it off.
Okay, good. So I heard about this and I'm like, this can't be a real thing. And I went and looked it up, and it's totally a real thing. So you and I have a straw man that we use on this program a lot. I want to use it again. It's this imaginary boardroom where there's a bunch of middle managers sitting around brainstorming ideas for the future. And someone said, there's a lot of paying customers that have a lot of latent bandwidth in their home internet connections. What if we could tap into that and sell it to people? And
so my latent bandwidth? My latent bandwidth.
Your latent bandwidth. Stay with me here, Josh. Constrain your outrage till I get to the full extent of this idea.
Listeners, Ben correctly had to put both his hands up in the calming gesture to like you're taming a wild beast, because I'm already wanting to tear it down.
Okay, so they're like, but it'll never work. People never agree to it. And they're like, well, what if we make it an opt-out feature? What if we install it by default, and the only way people cannot do it is to choose to not participate? Hang on, wrap some duct tape around your head and stick with me, Josh.
I hate everything about this.
This is not, I know you do it, and I know you would, which is why I brought this up. This is not theoretical. This is in place now. So what they decided to do is, hey, we're starting to have this presence in the world of devices that we've created. Amazon Echo Dot, Ring doorbell devices, and all of these things are in effect a Wi-Fi hotspot. And what if, instead of only utilizing that for the person that bought it and paying for it and utilizing it, we turn that into a node in a broader network and make that bandwidth available to offer additional services? So Amazon Sidewalk is the code word for this idea that they're taking all these devices that they proliferated into your homes and living space and using whatever one is the closest one available to offer additional Amazon services to people. Link in the show notes.
What does that mean, additional Amazon services to people?
I'll give you some examples. Amazon Sidewalk is a shared network that helps devices like Amazon Echo devices, Ring security cams, outdoor lights, motion sensors, and tile trackers work better at home and beyond the front door. When enabled, Sidewalk can unlock unique benefits for your device, support other Sidewalk devices in your community, and even locate pets or lost items. This is just the beginning.
They're co-opting the connectivity from the devices that I've brought into my home to create a separate premium paid-for internet that just exists. Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Am I reading this right?
Yes, you're reading this right. Click on the link and go to it. Not only are they selling you all the services that they've already anticipated, they're also advertising this to developers to try to imagine new ways to leverage it.
Amazon already hosts like 60% of the internet on their Amazon Web Services servers, and now they're just trying to take it over entirely. This is the first shots fired in a war against an open source protocol-based internet, and it's trying to turn it into a paid service.
Yes, and it's already functioning. Now, hear me out, because I'm going to defend part of what they're doing, even though I also agree with all of your slippery slope conspiracy theorist stuff. Okay, imagine that you install a Ring doorbell on your house and it's not functioning very well because it's just too far away from your wireless access point. But let's say your neighbor's Amazon Echo Dot in their kitchen window has a much better signal to your Ring doorbell device. And those are both devices in their network, and they can just utilize your neighbor's internet connection to make your Ring doorbell work better instead of your own.
So now unless my neighbors opted out, I am now eating into their bandwidth, unbeknownst to them.
Okay, there's a whole bunch of provisos and quid pro quos about the bandwidth thing that's happening. They've restricted it. They make promises that they won't use above a certain amount. All that. None of
course they do.
Slippery slope.
Listen,
slope. It could all change.
Look how lovely this giant horse is. It's already on wheels. It's nicely stained. We should totally just bring this into our city and have a big giant party around it.
Okay. You're very predictable sometimes, Josh. So Okay, you know those stupid posts that go around Facebook where people like trick each other into putting one of those things in, I do not consent for Facebook to use my personal information or whatever, like that's going to change anything?
It doesn't do anything. You've already agreed, like that is completely superseded by the fact that you're using Facebook, but okay.
This is actually one of those instances where that thing is true and it matters. At some point, Amazon revised their end user agreement and sent it to you like in one of those emails you get that you promptly ignore that's like, we've revised our user agreements, and threw this in there, this Sidewalk agreement in there. And now you have an extra checkbox in your configuration app for your Amazon Echo Dot, where if you go in there, it's already checked by default. And if you uncheck it, then you have opted out of Amazon Sidewalk.
For now. This is, they make it optional for now to appease people like me until the rigmarole dies down, and then they make it non-optional, and now everybody's already ignoring the handful of people that are paying attention like us, and like, oh, those are just the crazy kooks. You totally need to buy an Amazon Echo. It's great.
Okay, so let me say something else. If you can get to a headspace where you can completely put aside the slippery slope, evil corporation taking things that don't belong to them and controlling your life, if you can put all that aside from a strict, just like infrastructure point of view, this kind of makes sense. Like, why?
So yes, I agree. We live in a world
There's a lot
now.
of latent capacity out there, and we don't need to deploy additional devices that every individual owns just for themselves. If you could just treat it all like one giant flat internet of things.
I completely agree with you in the conceptual, in the idealistic standpoint, that we have all of these devices. We're not going to say a company, we're going to say devices that are all connected in such a way that, yes, technology-wise, we could institute some kind of protocol where they could all talk to each other, and like maybe it's better if my phone becomes a relay for your phone for a little while you're walking past my house, as opposed to trying to talk to the cell tower. Maybe that's more bandwidth efficient for the entire system as a whole.
Yes, you nailed it. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
However, what I am talking about is an open source protocol. Okay, there's an entire organization. What is it, the ISSA or the ISSS? Like one of these that defines these protocols. These are the people that work with major industries to come out with stuff like...
I think it's IEEE, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know it off the top of my head. But these are the companies that come out and say, this is what USB means. This is what a DisplayPort connector looks like. They're the ones that sit down, they get everybody together like, okay, proprietary, everything sucks for everyone. So let's all just agree on a standard so we can all interact. We'll make it better for everyone if we can all just agree what it's supposed to look like. This is why when you buy any device out in the world, you can be reasonably assured that it will work with your computer because of organizations like the IEEE, because it's open source, because it's out there for everyone to use.
Right.
If you try to make something at this scale proprietary, that's when we're talking about like dystopian future nonsense. That's when it's like, Amazon's just going to like, it's your bandwidth and we're just going to eat into it with like very minor restrictions. Until it's not. Until 10 years from now, it's like you have an internet connection that you pay for that Amazon owns because you agreed that they own it because you have Amazon devices in your house. And like our straw man boardroom, like this is how this went down, Ben. They had this boardroom like, we're taking pitch meetings today, and somebody walked in and it's like, okay, so there's the internet, right? Yes. What if we owned it? Like all of it, not just like the websites, but like the connection in people's houses. What if we just owned that too? And the board of directors is like, that sounds amazing. How do we make that happen? Well, we're going to make people agree to it and they're not even going to realize it. This is
all right. In my fictional boardroom, this is how it went down. Be like, hey, our studies show that there's that 99.8% of the time people aren't really utilizing the bandwidth that they're paying for in their homes, and we could leverage that, but only if we had a way to tap into it. How do we do that?
What if we'll just give it to their neighbors? Like, screw my neighbors. My neighbors have got that crappy coax internet connection that drops out all the time. I'm paying for the premium fiber stuff. They don't get my bandwidth. That's ridiculous.
Okay, now imagine past all of that to like the Star Trek universe where we just everything is available to everyone because we're wealthy enough that it's a common human right to have access to it. How do we get from where we're at to there if we don't have a half step like this?
This is not a half step. This is capitalistic corporations trying to co-opt it. This is a company trying to monetize something that should be a common good.
Okay, but then how do you do it in a way that you would find not morally objectionable? Who else out there is trying to find new ways to proliferate the internet that isn't a company interested in getting money?
You're going to hate this answer, but I think the EU is doing it right because there's the IEEE that is defining certain standards, and then the EU is coming down and like policing the boundaries of that. The EU just recently came down and said, hey, Apple, it's ridiculous that you're using proprietary connectors when the rest of everybody is being universal.
Okay, I concede that point. Standards is part of it. The other part is infrastructure, and somebody's got to buy it. So
who buys? Okay. Then here's my counter argument to that. Who buys the water infrastructure? Like, who's maintaining that? Who is maintaining the electrical infrastructure? Like, at what point are we just going to agree that having high-speed internet is a requirement to existing in the modern era and just turn this into a utility and take the for-profits out of it entirely?
All right, now I want to get my tinfoil hat out because if we turn this into a thing where, like, the government is installing their issued internet device, it's going to sit in my home but provide internet access to everyone because it's a public good. I don't like that any better.
You like that? You like that less than you like paying a company for it?
Yeah, at least with Amazon, I have the option to opt out if I want to.
Okay, well, how about the people that live in rural nowhere that have one internet provider that gives them garbage connection and they have absolutely zero incentive to make it better because they're their only option?
Well, now they have Elon Musk's new SATCOM broadband option that's being offered exactly for people like that.
And they fall out of the sky constantly and they're sketchy and not connected. But the point that I'm making here, and this is a common disruption between the two of us, is that you correctly pointed this out to me. from my perspective, if this solution doesn't work for everyone, then it's not a viable solution. And this is why I get upset when we're talking about for-profit internet providers, because there are people that don't get internet because of the system that we have in place. But they get electricity. They have access to water. Maybe it could be better, because I don't know how. I don't know. I've not done enough research on wells and aquifers to be talking about that. But they get power somehow. So there is a system in place to provide a common good to people. At what point do we just agree that internet is a common good?
I want to change to a different topic that we talk about sometimes with technology on the internet, and that is streaming services. I saw an article that was like the sky is falling with Disney Plus, and you can kind of see if you read between the lines and the headlines that they're not making it. In quarter 4 of this year, Disney reported a $387 million loss in their streaming service.
All right, put your tinfoil hat on, because I'm coming at this as an accountant. Are you ready? Okay. Disney is a giant organization, okay? So if you tell me Disney, like overall, like top level Disney posted losses, now I'm going to get concerned. If you're going to start,
but how long are they going to allow a single business unit to continue hemorrhaging cash before they finally just cut their losses and bail out?
You don't understand. Losses are good for companies, because this company gets to post this $387 million loss, but it's part of a conglomerate that then that loss gets to offset the income that they earn from another portion of their companies. So this $387 million loss is probably offsetting profits from somebody else. And who's to say that they're not like, oh, well, this is totally a Disney Plus expense. Let's put it on their books and just shifting this stuff around.
Okay. I don't know if that's true, but we'll let that hypothetically be true for the purpose of this discussion. My
hypothesis is that Disney, as Big Daddy Disney, is probably benefiting more from Disney Plus than this $387 million in losses, which is why Disney Plus is still a thing.
Yes, but because the entire lifespan of Disney Plus is shorter than that of this podcast, we've been at this since its inception. I want to revisit what we talked about, and that was initially their strategy, and probably rightfully was get more viewers at all costs. Yeah. So the price that they were offering their service at was a loss, and they were spending a great deal of money on producing original content and coming up with exclusive offerings and those kinds of things. And at some point, the get more people at all costs strategy isn't a long-term strategy. You have to transition to a sustainment strategy, and you can see that across the board in streaming services. Initially, they were trying to disrupt the status quo, which was like broadcast TV or cable TV. And now that they've shown that they can successfully do that, now they have to transition to a more sustainable long-term business model.
I think Disney is the kind of corporation that can leverage this. They can knowingly go into it like, we are going to eat losses for 5 years, but we're going to subscribe, tens of millions of people, and then we'll slowly just start boiling that frog. We'll just crank up the subscription price $2 or $3 a year.
And you can see that's it. That's the buttons and dials are turning right now is subscription price and password sharing. Those are the two main things that you can see all the streaming services grappling with right now. Netflix is raising their subscription price and cracking down on password sharing. Hulu is. Disney Plus, I can't even sign on over here in Kuwait, even though I own the account and pay for it.
Oh, well, you need a VPN, obviously.
I know.
That's the new solution.
But have you noticed that streaming providers are starting to crack down on VPNs as well? They're identifying commonly known VPN nodes and blocking those.
That's one of those arms races that's just going to happen forever. There's going to be people that I want to determine what you think my geography is, and there's going to be services that cater to them, and there's going to be services that are like, no, you live in America, you only get American stuff, and so it's just this battle between those two companies in this completely unregulated space.
Taxes and international governance and all those kinds of things.
Ugh.
Okay, so I think I said all I want to say about that. Watch this space. I think we're going to see Disney Plus become something new as Disney has acquired Hulu. They also own ESPN.
Whoa! I didn't know that. Disney bought Hulu?
Yeah.
Oh, no. They're just going to, I'm just going to log on one day and Hulu's going to be gone and it's going to be Disney Plus but green.
Yeah, or it's going to be Hulu with Disney Disney catalog offerings on it.
This is what happens in these capitalistic, like late stage crony capitalism. This is what's going to happen. Disney is going to set the barrier to entry to be a streaming service so high that it's just there's not going to be any competition. They're going to slowly start eating away at everyone else. And like I said, Disney's big enough to eat losses in order to make that a reality.
Yeah, and the recording industry kind of had to come to terms with this a long time ago when they just had this great monopoly that came because of the necessity of printing media, like cassettes or CDs or that kind of thing, and just you couldn't get anything out of them unless you paid them a great deal of money for it. And then once the internet came out, Napster and peer file sharing kind of disrupted that model. They had to reinvent themselves. So now their revenue stream is coming through streaming services and other things like that. And it completely disrupted the industry. And you can see the desire of streaming services that are disrupting cable TV to just be the king is dead, long live the king. Like cable is dead, long live cable.
Actually, you brought up something that's interesting. Let's talk about this for just a second in our Bad at Tech segment. Ben,
okay.
We are of similar enough age that we both had the opportunity to pirate media on the internet back when it was very easy to do. Did you do that?
I was in a weird position for this kind of thing, but I'm going to go back a little bit farther.
Okay.
I remember a time when we'd gone past a record player into the era of cassettes, and you would hear your favorite song come on the radio, and you could technically record it off the radio. Yes. But you'd get lucky if you could start your recording early enough to get the beginning of the song, and the DJ didn't happen to talk over the beginning or the end of it.
Okay. So did you do that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was even illegal.
Yeah, I think it was. I think you now have a physical recording of media that you didn't pay for. I don't know if it was or not. I don't know. I think it was. I did the same thing with Napster. I just downloaded files of file sharing because I wanted the music. So here's the thing. That still exists. With half an hour's worth of research and work, you or I could go on the internet and download a utility or a tool that would make it trivial to download whatever media file we wanted. DVDs, Blu-rays, videos, music, all of that. So this is that's kind of the space that Disney Plus and all of these streaming services are competing with, right? They have to set their barrier high enough, or their prices high enough that they're profitable, but so
low
high
enough that it isn't easier to pirate stuff.
Yes, because I guarantee you they've probably done the math, and they say if we raise our price $1 a month, this is the percent of our audience that will bail on the platform and just start downloading it for free anyway.
Okay, I've seen the comic, you probably have as well, where it shows someone wearing a pirate hat logged into Napster back in the early 2000s, and then they see whatever streaming music service come out, Spotify, and they take off their pirate hat and put it on the shelf, and then they see Spotify raise their prices 10 times, and they go and dust off their pirate hat and put it back on.
Yar mateys, back to the old ways. Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the future of this looks like. I have always found a great deal of I appreciate the value that the commercial offerings give, as long as it's not exorbitant. Like you said, there's an opportunity cost. I like the curated experience more than the unlimited access. Like when you were on Napster back in the day, in the very early days, there was this kind of halcyon period where you could just get access to anything. But even then, there was no standardized file naming practice, and sometimes the audio quality suffered. And you could get an album and they wouldn't conform, and your library was just this weird mismatch of unmatched, uncatalogued, poorly organized files. But then if you subscribe to Apple Music, it was all standardized. It was just listed. It had the album art. It was all the file names followed. You didn't have duplicate albums.
Everybody draws their lines differently. That, not having the album art did not bother me one iota. Having 18 different songs named track 2 and having no idea what they were, I was okay with that. Obviously, you were not.
I couldn't stand it. All right, before we end Bad at Tech, Josh, there's one other thing I want to touch on. I just entered into my realm this week. There is a modeling firm in Spain that apparently got so fed up with dealing with influencer Insta that they created an AI generated model that has gotten so many followers that they're now making over $10,000 a month off this fictional person.
That's awesome.
Her name is Aitana Lopez. It starts with AI, but it's an actual name that's frequently used in the Spanish country. And if you click on that, you can see it's just this account of this fictional like Spanish girl with pink hair wearing their clothes and stuff. And
the pink hair gets me every time, man.
It's not a real person, but it's gotten enough followers that now they can have all the benefits of owning this account that's an Instagram influencer that isn't real, and they don't have to deal with any of the problems of a real person.
No, but they do have to do the work. Like, they still have to come up with posts. They still have to generate the AI art. They still have to have a publishing schedule. They still have to deal with the advertisers. Like, they're doing all the back end work. I would go as far as to say that they have only eliminated maybe 15 to 20% of the overhead of actually running an influencer style social media
that's
account.
Perfect, because that shows that AI isn't this like be all cure all, but it does maybe eliminate 15 to 20% of the problem.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Just like somebody asked me the other day about AI in the workplace, because I have older people that I work with, and like, what do you think of this AI thing? I said, in 5 years, it's going to be the greatest receptionist we've ever had. And like, they're going to answer the phones, and they're going to be perfect. And we're not going to have to pay a receptionist. We're just going to have to pay $20,000 for a box.
And you're not going to ever have to worry about it having a bad day and making a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't eliminate the work that the firm is going to do. That doesn't completely replace everybody in here. That's just going to cut it down by 15 to 20%.
Yeah. All right. Well, here it is on Instagram for modeling agencies that need new models but don't want to have to deal with their personal problems.
I'm going to go look this up because I am a sucker for fake hair colors.
Pink hair?
I love like neon color hairs. Yeah. Okay, Ben, I'm taking over. You have had a bunch of segments.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a segment. I'm going to call this bad at parenting because it has to deal with my kids. I wasn't bad at parenting. I was actually being a good parent, I think. So here's the thing. My daughter she was born on November 20th, which is like right next to Thanksgiving. Okay. And so she just gets like a birthday week because that's just how it happens.
All the family shows up and you're already having a party, so it turns into her party too.
Right, but then we actually have a party set aside for her, which is usually the weekend before, and then her actual birthday day, we have to do stuff for her. And so it gets spread out over multiple days. But this year, one of the things we decided to do is like, you get a day. We're going to dedicate Saturday, the week before Thanksgiving, to you. Whatever you want to do. It's all you, baby girl. And so she wanted, first off, we started with pottery painting. 10 a.m. We were at the pottery painting place, and we sat down for 2 hours, and we painted pottery. And that was super fun. We had a good time. I feel like for her activity, she was the one with the least amount of patience for it, but she's 9, and so she gets away with that. After that, we had tickets to the new Trolls movie, but that didn't start until the afternoon. And so we had this dead time where...
Is this the second or the third Trolls movie?
The third Trolls movie. The first Trolls movie was okay. All right, they all have the same shtick. And it's just like, you're going to come here for the music, and the plot is terrible. But the music's great, and you're going to forgive a lot of that. This is just a continuance, and their whole shtick this time was it was a boy band. Like, it's all about the boy bands. And I will tell you, there was a couple of times where they did really quality boy band jokes where every adult in the audience was laughing and every kid turned to the audience and goes, I don't understand. What's so funny? And every parent did the same gesture at the same time, like, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
No, it was, they just used all the names. It's like, oh man, I'm glad we were able to get over our 98 degrees of separation and go from boys to men. And just like doing that kind of shtick where they said all the boy band like names. And of course, the kids aren't going
to know any of that. And then we'll all be in sync, and then we can follow One Dimension. Yeah,
One Direction. Yes,
One Direction.
Exactly. That's exactly the kind of stupid joke that they had lined up. They did it twice, and it was fantastic both times.
Nice.
Anyways, but we had this dead time from after we were done painting to when the movie was going to start. And so we had to get lunch, and we figured, she'll go to a sit-down place. We'll be there for like an hour and a half. No, she picked Panda Express. We were there for 20 minutes. Okay, that's fine. I like Panda Express. But now we have this extra slack time where, we can't really leave. It's
not long enough to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's not long enough to like go home. We're just kind of stuck here. And so we're like, all right, well, we're in this commercial center. Let's just go shopping. We ended up at the pet store to look at cats that were up for adoption. We ended up at World Market because my kids are weird and like World Market and all the crazy stuff that's out there, we got Thanksgiving crackers, that the British style crackers where they're the big paper tubes, and you open
sent me
them.
a photo of those.
We opened them. They had wind-up turkeys that had a little race course, and then we raced our wind-up turkeys, and everybody had a crown that matched the color of the hat that their turkey was wearing. It was cute. And
that sounds excellent.
Yes, it was. That was excellent. We went to Old Navy because my kids had never been to an Old Navy before, and I made fun of all the puffy vests that I didn't buy. But one place we went to, and it was actually a really good teachable moment for both my kids. It was Ulta. My wife and dragged all of us.
Is that a home decor store?
It's a makeup store. It is a makeup and hair accessory store, wall to wall, and it's the size of a Best Buy. I had no idea that there was that many products that women could use for their hair and face. And so my son was in there, and we're walking around, and he's like, "This is really boring." I'm like, "Yes, son. There is absolutely nothing in here for either one of us, but you are learning a very important skill that you will use for the rest of your life, and that is..."
Which is?
"To be patient when your significant other is interested in something and you are not." I love it.
That was a very good abstraction.
Our entire task here is to not be jerks. Like, all we have to do is be patient, be supportive, carry the stuff they ask us to carry, and leave with a smile on our face, and we will have achieved our objective and actually earned some points. He didn't quite get that part, but he will later. Now, that said, my wife, usually in the past when I'm at these places, it was me and my wife before we had kids. And so I was her partner. I was the one that she was bouncing ideas and stuff off of. So I had to be there physically with her the whole time.
Yeah.
It wasn't that way this time. My daughter and my wife paired off, and they started doing that. And they're doing the girl thing. And like, "Oh, what do you think of this?" Like, "Oh, I don't think that's pretty enough. I think I like the sparkly one," or whatever, because she's 9. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. And I was left as a grown man with my son in a store full of stuff that I don't care about. And so, Ben, I'll tell you right now, like, they took a right turn into the makeup, and I just kept walking straight to the back where all the hair dryers were on display, plugged in, so you could try them out to see what they were up to. And so, yeah, at one point, maybe my son and I had 2 hair dryers turned on, blowing hot air, pointed at each other, like if we were having a gunfight. So what? Who cares? At one point, maybe I picked up a styling wand and was like yelling Avada Kedavra at him from across the store. Maybe that happened.
Nice.
But the best part of the whole thing was me being a dad and goofing around with, things that whir and make loud noises in the back of the store with my son. My 9-year-old daughter coming around the corner, stomping her foot, like with her hands straight at her sides in this very erect pose and going, "Would you stop touching stuff?" Like at the top of her lungs. And
when you wrote this in the show notes, I thought it was going to be you telling her to stop touching stuff. This is a great plot twist.
Yeah, no, this was me playing with all of the stuff that was on display plugged in and having a goofy time with my son, and my 9-year-old daughter coming around a corner and yelling at me and making me feel like I'm the kid that's doing the wrong thing.
Okay, I just feel prompted to issue a challenge to our listeners. If you're a listener in the Bad at Magic podcast, I want you to go to an Ulta and see if you can find something interesting to do and post a photo or share a story with us on one of our social medias. I would love to hear what other interesting things there are to do in the Best Buy of boutiques.
Ulta, sponsor the podcast.
That's great. It's been a while since we've done a recurring quick segment, but I want to introduce, since I got here and I've spent so much time with the Italians and I've been brushing up on my Italian language skills, I want to introduce a Bad at Italian segment here.
Ooh, okay.
So I was talking to some of my Italian friends this week, and Italians, from my experience of having lived there back in 2012, they work, but they're also really enamored of their leisure. They'll take the entire month of August off work every year. And so it's interesting to see them come out here and have to take on the operational tempo that is in this theater of... they can't just come over here and take the month of August off. They have to work. And you can see it kind of taking a toll on the guys as they're here. They don't like it. And their commander, since they've been here, he's been working really hard, long hours every day of the week. And finally I saw one of them and I was like... I'm trying to sort out the names. It was Massimo. I was like, "Massimo, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? You look tired." And he says, Oh, in Italian we say ogni giorno è lunedì, which means every day's a Monday. And I loved it. That's the way they feel about what they're doing over here. Every day's a Monday. That's a good way to describe a deployment.
Okay. I like that. It was ogni giorno e lunedì.
Ogni giorno è lunedì.
I'm never going to get the inflections right. Just give me the pronunciation, will you? Ogni giorno e lunedì.
Yeah, every day's a Monday.
Total American speaking Italian.
Perfect. But Josh, I want to tell you something else you might not know about Italian, and that is Italians are not snobs about you learning their language. Like, even if you do it badly, they love that you're trying. Unlike French or...
AFN always had that commercial where, like, just try and you'll get much more positive responses from, like, the places that you're in.
Yeah, but it's not like that everywhere. Like, it's not. But in Italy, it definitely is. If you're trying, they like it.
Okay. That's good to know.
What are you reading right now, Josh?
Ben, you know exactly what I'm reading, you jerk.
So you sent me a photo. You were totally going through these Wheel of Time books so fast.
So I am. They're my jam. I love them, and I'm listening to them at 110% because this is my 5th read through, and I can predict all the story beats when they're going to happen. That doesn't make them any less enjoyable, but I am chewing through them. I will have to take a break at some point because my boss assigned me 5 hours of book to listen to. One of those organizational, like, be better than you are kind of books.
What's it called? I want to read it.
You know what?
I want a reading assignment.
Let's read it together, and we'll talk about it on the podcast. How about that?
What's it called?
So it's called The Ideal
Team Player.
Yes, I threw that at the bottom of the show notes. Stop it. It's called The Ideal Team Player by Patrick M. Lencioni. It's 5 hours long. I have no idea what it's about. He assigned it. He walked into my office randomly out of the blue and was like, I want you to read this book. I'm like, I've got Audible credits. Why not? Let's just knock that out. And so at some point, I'm going to have to take a break from Wheel of Time and read 5 hours worth of corporate book.
Okay. Well, I think that might be our next book that we'll do together on the podcast.
Love it. Well, for this one, like I said, I'm going to try to interpret and do a little more deep dive into the Wheel of Time as I'm reading through it for the 5th time. This time, one of the things that I really noticed was the predominance of what we would consider real-world myths and legends that is intricately woven into the Wheel of Time. And so the idea of the whole thing of the book is that the Wheel of Time turns and ages come and pass. Memories fade to legend, legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. So, and it's interesting. So the idea is that everything keeps happening in this cycle, but it's always a little different every cycle, but the same kind of story beats just keep happening over the thousands of years or however long one of these ages is. And I was noticing, like, I took a minute to reflect. I'm like, he actually wove quite a bit of real-world mythology into this in interesting ways. For example...
Had you not noticed that on previous readings?
I had noticed it on previous readings, but I'm just, in a way that's like, oh, that's cute. And then I moved on. I hadn't really, thought or put some time and effort into it. One of the more obvious ones is they keep calling the big event that's going to happen. They keep calling it the last battle. And in the old tongue, they call it, it's Tarmangeddon. And you can't help but notice that sounds exactly like Armageddon.
Armageddon.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the last battle. And so it's just this idea of this final giant conflict that's going to happen pervades throughout the ages. One of the prophecies that define who the dragon is, this person that's going to save us and be our savior, is that he will touch the sword that cannot be touched. There is this thing. It looks like a sword. It is sealed off by magic in the center of this fortress. The fortress is called the Stone of Tyr. And so this person who is going to save everyone is prophesied by being the only person that can draw the sword from the stone. And right there, you have Arthurian legend, not to mention the fact they actually have a guy in the books. His name is Arthur Pandrag. Arthur Hawkwing, they called him. He was this great king of justice that united the whole land, and a child with a bag full of gold could walk from one side of the land to the other and never be hassled by corruption or outlaws the entire way because of the truth and justice that reigned while he was the king.
Wait, you have to enlighten me. Is there a reason you're pronouncing Arthur instead of Arthur?
That's what they call him in the books. The king's name in these books was Arthur. And it's just King Arthur. Like, they're just weaving this Arthurian legend into it again. And the idea is that all of these pronunciations or all of the legends are slightly skewed by temporal distance from the actual event that happened. At one point in the book, one of our main characters is a blacksmith.
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
This is The Great Hunt? Is that the book you're talking about?
No, all of the book. I've expanded my scope, and I'm talking about things that happen throughout all of the books. Just the way that he's weaving modern legends into this.
Got it.
The last example that I will give you is one of our main characters is a blacksmith, and the entire book, the entire series, he's conflicted because he doesn't want to hurt people. He has this axe, and he doesn't like the axe. He keeps comparing his axe that he uses to kill people to his hammer, his blacksmith hammer that he uses to make things. He wants to be a blacksmith. He wants to make things. He doesn't want to tear things down. And so at one point he throws the axe away and he forges himself a new battle hammer, a hammer that can be used for both, for making and for fighting. It's this whole character transition. But it's the first magically imbued weapon that's made for thousands of years, in the canon of the books. And once he's done making it, he wants to name it after a specific thing. And he's like, oh, what's the ancient word for this? And he gives a verb. And then somebody comes and goes, oh, it's Mahalanir. And so he names his hammer Mahalanir, which is obviously a reference to Mjolnir, which is Thor's hammer. Yeah. So there's the first magical hammer that has been forged in thousands of years, and it's named shockingly similar to Mjolnir. So it's just this really interesting way of, again, the whole shtick is that so much time elapses between these ages turning that everything gets skewed by legend and the temporal distance from the event actually happening. And so these things happen, and maybe they're not happening in exactly the way that you thought they did, or maybe the story got screwed up over the years, and he just kind of cleverly finds opportunities to weave them into the story in ways that make sense.
Okay, I got a question for you. Is the mythos surrounding all of that, you think, I don't know, it's like he's deliberately trying to draw from all of the human mythos because the story he's telling is potentially another retelling of our story. And
he talks about there's little snippets where they talk about the Age of Legends, or you will get to see the Age of Legends. And I'm extracting a lot from this, but what they're describing sounds a lot like skyscrapers. What they're describing sounds a whole lot like public utilities. What they're describing sounds a whole lot like helicopters and airplanes. And they keep talking about this Age of Legends that was thousands and thousands of years ago, and it sounds very much like the modern day world.
Okay, so you're on to the fourth book now?
Yes, I just started book 4, The Shadow Rising. This book is I'm looking forward to this book too. This is book 4 and book 5 are really where Matt, which is one of our main 3 male protagonists, really comes into his own and really starts to flesh out as my hands down favorite character in the entire series.
Okay, I have a question for you though about the blacksmith character. What's his name?
His name is Perrin.
Perrin?
Yep.
Perrin. Does Perrin, if he wants to be a blacksmith and not hurt people, does he also studiously not create weapons as a blacksmith? Isn't that?
Well, he's an apprentice blacksmith when everything in the first book went down, and he gets sucked into this adventure. And very rarely does he actually get to practice his craft.
I got it.
He is the archetype of the reluctant hero. He just wants to go home, settle down, start a farm or blacksmith business, but he keeps getting called to these greater and greater things. I'm getting back at
a point you brought up earlier, how far down the handle of the spear can you be before you're not actually part of the violence? Is he a conscientious objector to creating weapons? No, he's not. He that's one of the struggles that he has. His ethic that he's created means I won't hurt people, but I can make tools that other people use to hurt people, and I'm not accountable for what they choose to do with them.
He doesn't want that to be his defining trait. He doesn't want this axe that he carries to be the thing that he's remembered for. I don't want to be a warrior. I want to be a blacksmith, and that's kind of his struggle the entire book. So
okay.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it's like the Tony Stark thing. I'll sell to whoever wants to buy them, but I'm not the one using them. I'm just making them.
He never made a weapon as a blacksmith. He just sees himself that way. And he struggles with the fact that he sees himself as a blacksmith, but he's being called upon to do these violent things. And that's his struggle the whole book.
That's pretty good. Dang it. I might get into it. However, I just took up another epic fantasy. For the first time ever, I've started reading The Fellowship of the Ring.
Ooh, Ben. That's a tough one, my man.
I know, but I'm doing okay so far.
Okay.
I'm doing all right. Like it was hard when I was 15, but whatever needed to happen has happened, and I'm doing all right. I'm enjoying it.
I still don't like these vegetables, but I want the good stuff that comes from the other side of it, from eating all of them.
Yes. So while I'm reading The Fellowship right now, that means I got through my last book, which was Bad Blood: Secrets and Lies in a Silicon Valley Startup by John Carreyrou. I need to unpack this in way more time than we have to do it right now. It's so much so that I'm going to try to make a case that you and I read this together on the podcast. So hear me out for a second.
Okay.
This book about the downfall of Theranos Corporation in Silicon Valley was so riveting. It was a story about Silicon Valley. It was a story about college dropouts. It was about government regulation. The military got involved. It was about journalistic integrity and capitalism and democracy and corruption and so many of these things all kind of come to a head within our lifetime in news that just even happened within the last few years. And I think it's only because it all fell apart that the whole story got to get told. It blew me away. And maybe 100 times I thought, I wonder what Josh would have to say about this, or I want to talk to Josh about this, but you don't know the story, so I'm making a case that we read it together and potentially talk about it.
Read it together. You already read it. You just want me to read it so you can talk to me about
I'll read it again.
We'll vote on it at the end of the episode.
All right. Josh, I haven't done Board Game Survivor in a long time, but I want to tell you about something that happened this week. We have one member of our squadron commander team. There's 12 of them. That's like the social organizer personality archetype. Like, let's all get together
let's do things, because if we're not seeing each other physically, then what are we even doing here?
Yeah. So she organized this mixer that I went to, mostly because I like the people and not because I enjoy this particular kind of thing. But she had, apparently there's some charity back in the States that will donate Hawaiian shirts to troops. So you just got to tell them who you are and they'll send you a bunch of Hawaiian shirts. So we went in the room and she had like this whole table covered in Hawaiian shirts. So we all put on a Hawaiian shirt and then we just played like the kind of party games you play where you're interacting with people. I'm going to abstract all that away and just focus on one particular social interaction that happened. So we're doing the game where you're all standing up and she'll give a question about an interesting thing about you and say, which do you like better, pizza or spaghetti? And go to one side of the room or the other. That wasn't one of the questions. It's just a bad hypothetical I came up with off the top of my head. And then you go to the other side of the room and you look around and see who the other people are and who the other spaghetti people are. And you point and laugh and talk for a second. Then you get another question. Anyway, over the course of this, she asked one question. She said, if you can say the alphabet backwards in less than 10 seconds, go to this side of the room. And if you cannot, go to the other side of the room. And
ooh, that's easily demonstratable. Like, they would probably make you do it if you had the audacity to say that you could.
So as it starts to happen, I can see a few people that are like, I used to maybe could do that once, but I'm not sure I could demonstrate it. And suddenly everyone starts to filter over to one side of the room. And I had this calculus to make in an instant. I can do this, but do I want to demonstrate it in front of everyone?
Right. Yeah, especially if you're going to be the only person. Like, oh, you can? Well, do it. And then you can just look them confidently in the eye and say, no.
So I read correctly what the outcome of this social situation that popped up was going to be. And I went to the other side of the room and stood there by myself until the filtering stopped. And everyone's staring at me, anticipating what's going to happen next.
Oh, you know what? You had the opportunity to make so many jokes there. Like the obvious one that comes out is like, what, seriously? Come on, guys. Or better was like, wow, am I the only one that can't do the alphabet backwards in less than 10 seconds? Like, presumably that they're all on the other side.
That's a good one. I wish I thought of that one. Be like, what? This isn't the yes side of the room or the no side of the room?
You can all do the alphabet backwards? That's amazing. Oh, and then just walk back to the other side.
Right. Yes. All those things are true. Man, those are some good ones. Josh, got any more?
For that one? Oh, yeah. Like when they ask you to demonstrate, like, which language
You're so good at this. Yeah. I just knew that if I went to that side of the room and everyone else had gone the other side of the room, there was no way on earth that she wasn't going to stop the game and make me demonstrate.
Okay. So did she? Were you required to demonstrate, and did you fail spectacularly, and did it devolve into laughter when you couldn't?
No, this is one of those moments in life that almost never come up, where at some point in your past you develop some utterly useless party game skill that just for whatever reason stuck with you like crazy.
Oh, Ben. Are you aware that this is okay? Oh man, I hope this I'm gonna hang on. No. We are stopping because you have to know this. You realize that this is in pop culture the question you get asked as part of a sobriety test, right? Are you aware of that?
To say the alphabet backwards?
Yes!
I've seen that YouTube video where the guy makes them do a jazz dance or something like that.
That's from Reno 911. But no, what I'm talking about is it's a common misconception that this is a question that you will get from a police officer if they pull you over and suspect you of being intoxicated. Say the alphabet backwards. All right, you're not
drunk. Say the alphabet backwards.
But here's the other piece of it. The other piece of it is that there are people who are chronic alcoholics that then practiced in order to say the alphabet backwards in case they were called upon to do this thing. And so
the circular irony here is beautiful.
Yes, and so you having this random skill of being able to say the alphabet backwards to you is a cute party trick. To everyone else is like, geez, how much does this guy drink that he dedicated the time it took to learn this skill?
So if this mixer had happened within the first few weeks and people had time to wonder about that, they might consider that I was potentially a closet alcoholic. But the fact that this is happening at the tail end of this and everyone knows that I'm a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that's never had a drop of alcohol in my entire life, it just has this weird kind of why does he know that?
Yeah, okay. They know you well enough that they can chalk it up to, that's just Ben.
Right.
Okay.
So that's how it was. I nailed it in 5 seconds. Letter perfect.
I love the irony of this situation. That was great. Thank you for that.
For our main segment today, Josh, this weekend was Black Friday. We just had Thanksgiving. We normally talk a lot about Thanksgiving. I think one of the beautiful things about doing this show for so long is that over time the episodes fall in different points in the progression of things, and sometimes we talk about a thing and sometimes we don't at all. But right now I think our minds are focused on gift giving. So I want to talk for the rest of this episode about gift giving.
Before we move on to that, there are listeners that are dying to know, yes, I did make Thanksgiving dinner. Yes, it was fantastic. This was easily the best turkey I've ever made. First time I brined a turkey in apple cider for 18 hours before I smoked it in applewood for 7 hours. Ben,
this feels like an arms race.
It was the most moist and delicious turkey that I've made in a very long time. And
you brined it and then you fried it?
I brined it and then I slow smoked it. All with the common thread of apple. Now, the only thing that I'm going to work on next year is the skin. While it was delicious, it was almost inedible because of how tough the skin was. And so that's the weakness of my turkey right now. I've got the flavor down. I've got the moisture content down. I need to make the skin just as good as the rest of the turkey. That's going to be the challenge for next year.
Challenge accepted. Well done. I wish I could have been there. Okay. You've probably heard it said, and I can't tell which psychologist it was, but there's what are known as the 5 love languages: words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, physical touch, and lastly, gift giving. So we're going to focus today on the love language of gift giving, and that is, in our society and many, we've set aside this time of year to kind of go through these rituals of giving gifts to people as an expression of our affection, love, or social obligations. Let's talk about it.
Whew. So apologies to everyone who has ever had to receive a gift from me. This is not one of my love languages. I am very bad at getting gifts. I try very hard and I fail spectacularly. And this would be fine if my wife wasn't so amazing at gift giving. I will do my best to give her something thoughtful, and then she will give me something that is just so perfect. Something that I mentioned 6 months ago in passing, never even dreaming one day to own such a thing. And then she just hands it to me wrapped up. And then this is so amazing. I am so disappointed in myself for giving you something that's not even close to this quality.
Yeah. And it's interesting how quickly you just go to comparing someone's strength at your weakness and feeling inadequate, but I don't think that's the right place to go here. So let's talk about this as we do on the Bad at Magic podcast from the perspective of understanding what we're doing and why, and potentially getting a little bit better at it.
Okay. Yes, let's
try to be a little less bad at gift giving.
This is something hopefully you can help me get better at.
Okay. So on episode 9 of the Bad at Magic podcast, among other things that we talked about this, gift giving, and I mentioned this idea that at least like for your children, you could give something you need, something you want, something you need, something to wear, and something to read, which is a good rule of thumb for your kids, but not good for everyone else. So in your circle of friends, I've seen it often represented on the internet as a pyramid. It's you could say it's a limitation of the human mind that we have a few people that we're very close to, and then a next tier that's like the pretty good friends, and then like the sort of friends, and then acquaintances, and then everyone else.
Well, think of it as a concentric circles. At the center of the circle is you and yours, and like that circle is very small by definition. It has to be small. You can't draw a big circle in the middle. But then the circle that's the next circle out has a lot more area. There's a lot more people that can fit into that next circle. And then as each circle gets farther from you, it gets bigger and more people fit into that category.
Okay, so that all exists, whether it's a pyramid or concentric circles or whatever it is, that all exists, but it doesn't naturally derive gift giving in and of itself. It just informs gift giving when it comes up through other things, whether it's social rituals, birthdays, weddings, Christmas, retirement, housewarming gifts, those kinds of things. Then you refer to this pyramid, these concentric circles, and then the composite of those two things help you make a decision. Would you disagree with that?
No, I don't think so at all. Budget factors in there as like another axis, I think, but closeness to the person that you are giving the gift to is the primary thing that you're thinking about when you're trying to determine what gift to give.
So to do like we do sometimes and abstract everything away, ultimately money that we get from our job or from whatever it is we're doing is an substitute for the work that we put in. So I trade some of my time for work, and my employer gives me money, and now I have money, and then if I go through this ritual, I'm using that money to give someone a gift, and ultimately, if you were to take all the middle steps away, I'm trading some of my time and giving it to that person.
That's the key right there, is because if it's completely valid and completely appropriate, in my opinion, to just give somebody money. It's like, oh, I'm going to give you a gift. My budget for the gift that I was going to give you was $50. Here is $50. That is unacceptable. It is completely unacceptable to hand somebody $50. Somehow, in our society, it is slightly more acceptable, still bad, but more acceptable to hand them a $50 Amazon gift card. For some reason, that's better than just the cash, which then, if you extrapolate those two things, cash is unacceptable, gift card slightly more acceptable. They're almost indistinguishable from each other, but there was a tiny investment of my time into getting the gift card. So therefore, the only thing that matters when it comes to gift giving is the amount of time that I have dedicated to this person to give them a gift.
Kinda. So if that $50 represents, let's just say you make $50 an hour. If that represents an hour of your work, you're giving them an hour of your work by giving them $50. But then there's an additional layer that is, well, we've already extracted away all the effort and time and energy that you put into getting that $50. So now we're going to layer on an additional level of caring that's shown through the gift giving process, which is thinking about you, thinking about the situation, coming up with something creative to do with that hour I've set aside for that person.
I see. So what I'm mistaking then is it's not the time. Like if we have cost on one axis and I have mislabeled time as the other axis, it's not time, it's thought. It's the amount of mental effort that I have put into figuring out which gift to give you for any given price point. That's the thing that matters.
Yes. And some of the rituals we participate in don't even have that at all. Like, for instance, if you're doing an office white elephant party, like you don't even know who the person's going to be. You're just trying to find something appropriate for that template of the social ritual, and then you execute it. And so you can't be accused of thoughtlessness.
So, but again, the $50 Amazon gift card, which might be an attractive gift in an office white elephant, has very low thoughtfulness and therefore is not like it shows that you didn't really care. So what we're giving is the caring. It is the physical display of this is how much I care about you.
Yes.
So I should just give everybody cash because I don't care about anyone.
But you do, Josh. That's the thing. I know you're kind of saying that, but when you give up cash, there's this maybe it's linear, but I'd say it's probably linear curve of like how much I care for you shows how much of my time I've worked that I will give up for you.
I see. Okay.
So when you and I were talking about this, and we don't normally abstract it away and distill it to this laser focused of a definition, but like you can tell where someone is in those concentric circles or on that pyramid of friendship by how much of our time in the form of money we're willing to give to them. And you just know this.
Yes, because everybody has either seen this or been a victim, one of the parties in this exchange where you exchange a gift and you open the gift that they gave you or they open yours and there's
a discrepancy.
There is an incredibly thoughtful, like handmade, like, oh wow, this took a lot of time and or effort and you got them the Starbucks gift card. And now, oh dear.
It says, I'm a lot closer to the bullseye on your friendship chart than you are on mine.
That's the thing. That's what we've just identified is like, holy crap, you think I'm a lot better of a friend to you than I think you are a friend to me.
Yeah, what an awkward social situation that is.
I hate all of these social rules. You can see why gift giving now becomes one of my weaknesses because I don't
it's a social minefield.
And I don't get it anyway. Like I don't understand all of the social constructs that exist in our society in the first place.
If you flip over that Starbucks gift card, you'll notice on the back that the serial number ends in the same 6 digits that are the date of the day we first met.
That is the most like out of your butt bullcrap answer I have ever heard, and I promise you I will use it before this year is over.
All right. So I like the place you went to because I think misevaluating the situation can lead to some of this social awkwardness where either there's a misalignment of the place that you are in the concentric circles of friendship or the level of effort that you put into giving the gift, or simply you're trying really hard but you just get it wrong. So there's a usual spot for gift giving, and that's that it's something nice and maybe aligned at the proper level in the friendship diagram, but it's kind of useless and it's quickly forgotten.
This is good. Like wherever else this conversation goes, you have given me a good structure to start evaluating where I need to start my gift giving because I'm going to sit down and the first question is not what would they like for a gift. The first question is, okay, where on this 2-dimensional chart do they lie? So like what time and attention do I need to focus on this gift? This is a very objective thing that I can do and I appreciate that.
The problem with trying hard is that you can sometimes land. So that's the usual spot. The usual spot is like something nice but useless. The sour spot is something that's not nice or insulting or thoughtless.
Thoughtless. What's a thoughtless gift?
I don't know. Like you have a friend that had their toes amputated, you got them toenail polish. I mean, just like something just completely tone deaf and wrong.
I get it. So you get them like a balance bike. It's like my kid is 9, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Just something that's worse than useless. It's just wrong. Like it shows the opposite of thought. It shows like you were actively not thinking about them.
I'm remembering a Scrubs episode where the janitor came to a baby shower and he gave them a dog kennel. It was an actual dog kennel. It's like, what, this for when we get the baby a puppy? No, it's a baby cage. You put them in there with some food and they can take care of themselves for a while.
Yeah. And I think the reason we can sometimes hit the sour spot when you maybe not going for the usual spot is you're trying to hit the sweet spot. And the sweet spot is, for me, the sweet spot is that perfect gift. Something that you wouldn't buy for yourself, but you love it and you use it all the time.
I love that you have realistic expectations for everything that you do. It's like, for me, the sweet spot is the absolute perfect pinnacle gift that you can get that person at any given point in time. Ben, you are such a people person. That drives me nuts. Like
it can happen at any price point. It can be the perfect $5 gift.
What? Yeah, but you're saying the perfect gift. It's like, oh yeah, that's attainable for the normal human. Me over here struggling just to get like the parameters correct. I'm not shooting for the perfect gift. I'm doing my best to get acceptable gifts.
Okay, well, let me tell you one time you got it right, Josh. 15 years ago, I want to say, 15 years ago, one Christmas, you gave me a playset of Mutavault, which at the time was a relatively unknown magic card, but just had the potential to be really useful and go in every kind of deck. And it's only it was just what I needed. I've used it all the time. Every time I get them out and put them in a deck, I think of you, and they've appreciated in value. I mean, it was the perfect gift, and you didn't know that. I don't know what you were thinking when you got it.
I got lucky. Like I knew, like we had a shared interest. Like this is, you're talking about like you have these parameters, right? I have similar like structures in which I try to purchase gifts in, and it's nothing like yours. Like to be completely frank, wherever you land in those concentric rings or on the mountain or whatever our analogy is for how close you are, I have different criteria that I'm shooting for. So if we're talking like an office white elephant, which I'm going to have to do, I have an office secret Santa that I have to purchase for. I just started. I don't know these people, but I have to buy a gift for a person that I don't know about. And so in this circumstance, my brain immediately goes to universality. What is something that I can get that provides utility pretty much to everybody? Like, and I don't have to know a lot about
we end up at Starbucks gift cards so often.
This is why I end up at Starbucks gift cards so often. And like I put a little, usually I end up making like a frame for it, like an actual wooden frame with like plexiglass on either side. And I'll write like nice. Break in case of emergency or something on it, something goofy.
I love it.
But right, that's the thing though. Like I'm getting you a completely thoughtless gift, but I'm compensating for that with a little bit of time that I took to make it kitschy or cute with a handmade portion.
There's definitely an axis on the gift-giving chart that allows you to take something that otherwise would be interpreted as thoughtless and make it into something thoughtful. And that's a great example. A handmade frame in plexiglass with some writing on it.
Yeah. So that's just one example.
So we have these concentric circles of the good of our friends, but we don't just give gifts to everyone in the middle circle and maybe the next circle, but not the other ones. There's another decision-making criteria that happens, and that is the proximity that we have to the person, the frequency with which we see them, the level of intimacy we have with them, and maybe some other factor like it's their birthday, or it's their wedding, or it's an office white elephant, or it's a secret Santa, or it's a whatever. One way in which we've done this in my family with the people that are in my very closest circles is on both sides of my family, my wife's side and my side, we both have a lot of siblings, and we've independently made the decision to run an assignment cycle. Yes. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, so it's the idea where it's a one-to-one translation for the gift. So you're not buying gifts for 18 people. You're buying gift for one person, which gives you more time to focus and a larger budget.
Right, exactly. And it's not that it serves two functions. One, it gives you some focus, and two, it also gives you a get out of jail free pass for giving gifts to any of the rest of the people.
Right. You don't have to feel bad when you don't buy stuff for everyone else, because we all agreed in advance this is the structure we're going with.
Right. So that structure kind of helps simplify the gift-giving process in this social ritual we're going through, even in the very closest of intimate circles. So that when we all get together at Christmas and I've only gotten a gift for one of my 5 siblings, it's okay. Like, there's no one even questions it.
That's a great example of an opt-in system where you are an informed consumer and you know what you're getting yourself into before you agree to the terms of this thing, as opposed to an opt-out system where we're just going to do this by default, and if you don't know, well, that's bad on you. Amazon.
Okay, I love that you said that, but that also makes me wonder, what if when my family had proposed this rotational, like every 6 years you give to one person thing, and what if I'd said like, nah, I don't want to do that? What does that mean?
You break the social contract because you're rolling into Christmas morning. Everybody's got a 1-to-1 gift, and you come in with the wheelbarrow, something thoughtful and perfect for everyone. And now you're the guy.
I expect them to reciprocate.
Yeah, I think it's worse if you don't. I think it's like, oh, I just felt like being generous this year, and now you're like, oh, you SOB, you just set the bar so much higher for everybody else, and now. What's going to happen next year? Like, we're all going to agree in advance that it's a 1-to-1, but is Ben going to roll in with perfect gifts for everyone again? Like, now you're breaking the social contract.
I don't give perfect gifts. If we did it this way, where you just gave to everybody in your concentric circles, I mean, on the pyramid, you've got 1 to 2 of your very close, like your significant other, and then you've got 8 to 20 in your closest, and then another 20 to 50 in your next circle. Like, if you just gave a gift to all those people and you kind of had them in graduating budget circles, you'd break the bank every year. Like, it just doesn't work. That's why we have these social rituals on top of it, like rotations and stuff.
Ben, my friend, my brother, I would have a hard time coming up with the names of 50 people that I knew. And you're talking about like this explosion of people in your life that you have to buy gifts for, and there is no chance I am buying gifts for more than like maybe 10 people total the entire holiday season.
I love you, all my people. I'm sorry if I don't get gifts for you all every year.
All of my thousands of people, apparently. My God, Ben, how many people do you know?
Well, okay, so that was one of the things I was getting at with my ended deployment thing. Like, I didn't know who the people I were going to come out here and make and become friends, but I look back on every deployment I've had, and there's 1 or 2 or 3 people that I'm still in touch with it because we became friends on that deployment. I picked up a few more on this one, and that adds up over time, those experiences. Every time I've gone to a new church group and make a friend or two, every time I go to a new workplace and make a friend or two. The internet has enabled us to maintain contact with those people instead of them always just being a memory. I mean, the time when you had to be pen pals, like that ended really fast, but Facebook made it trivial.
This is such a great example of introverts don't have friends, they have extroverts that adopt them. I don't have like we weren't friends, you adopted me, sir. Like, I'm just your like pet person. Like that's how this worked. Like, I do not have this circle of people. Like, well, I'm not friends with anybody.
Thanks for continuing to tolerate me. So in our party game, one of the questions she asked is the introvert extrovert deciding factor question. If you're the kind of person that recharges by being alone, go to this side of the room. And if you're the person that gets energized by being around groups of people, go to this side of the room. Now, this is an interesting question to ask, because if this party was completely voluntary, everyone would have gone to one side of the room. But because this was kind of a mandatory fun kind of party, we had equal representation. So what would you guess the percentage was amongst this group of commanders?
Well, first of all, before I answer your question, you're the person that before she was done with the question, you ran to the extrovert side of the room and then hugged everybody that came over to that side of the room with you.
I'm more solitary than you give me credit for, but I don't want to get into that. What do you think the dividing was?
The split was, I'm going to say that it was 60-40 towards introverts. I think people think they're introverted more than they actually are introverted.
Nailed it. It was
that.
It was 60-40 split. Perfect. Well done. All right, so let's divide these up. Let's divide up our gift giving into price tiers. And I think, again, if you abstract it away as just into level of effort, you've got like the 0 to 20. There's some kind of social ritual, some kind of demand where you're just giving a gift to someone, where you're just putting in an hour or less of effort and thought.
Okay.
That's all that's expected in that situation.
Yeah, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. For me, at least, my brain goes to universality. I want high acceptance, low rejection rates. And so this is something like a bottle of wine or alcohol. If I know that they like a specific kind of alcohol, if I don't know what kind of alcohol they like, then they get a bottle of red. That's just what it's going to be. One of my go-tos for a while, I like this one quite a bit, is a 1-month gift card to a streaming service like Hulu or Netflix or something. Like,
nice.
Here is the gift of entertainment for 1 month.
Okay, those are good. I think food is usually pretty safe, although food's gotten more fraught in recent times. But one
allergies.
That my parents
we care about allergies.
Yeah, one that my parents always did that was a hit growing up that I just love to go to for nostalgic reasons that aren't for other people, but I abstract that away, is these what used to be called Lifesaver storybooks. It looks like a little book, and you open it up, and then inside are packs of Lifesavers candy, the little circle.
Yeah.
With the
I
whole...
remember those from when I was a kid, and I hate Lifesavers, so...
Well, that's a great example of what can happen in these kind of situations. I can give you something that's very near and dear to my heart and is a genuine expression of kindness and generosity and emotion, and to you look at it and go, this sucks. I hate these.
Well, and again, this is why in this price range, I'm shooting for universality of acceptance. It's not about being thoughtful. It's about will they accept this gift?
So I didn't point this out because I think it went without saying, but if you gave me a bottle of wine, I'd be like, this sucks. I hate this.
I hope that I would be smart enough not to give a devout LDS person a bottle of wine. I would hope I'd be smarter than that.
But I wouldn't say this sucks. I hate this. I've been given bottles of wine as gifts before, and I just re-gift it without a crisis of conscience. And I thank the person that gave it to me genuinely for the exchange of time and the expression of emotion.
How dare you not drink the wine that you were gifted, sir? That is not what you're supposed to do with that. Re-gifting. Get out of here.
It's the Mormon loophole. Hey, would you give me this bottle of vodka, please? All right. I think a good book, thoughtfully chosen, can help if you know the person. But also, that's a risky one because it's also like a chore. And
books are very specific, and it's tough to in general, this person likes fantasy, and then you get them some fantasy book that either I've already read this, or I own this, or I don't like this author, or there's a lot of ways that can go wrong.
Yeah. Okay, so just in this 10 to 20 degree category, I recently found something that I absolutely loved. I think $10 to $20 category is I got, for practical reasons, a boot dryer. It's just a couple of fans that have a warming element on it that stick down inside your shoes. And that thing is so handy. Every time one of my kids gets their shoes muddy and we wash them and they're all wet, you just stick those suckers in there. I use it every day after work. So every day when I put my boots on, they don't stink and they're dry. That thing's so freaking handy, and it's only cost $20. That's the kind of gift you can only give someone once, but it's also the perfect spot of it's something they probably don't have and they would find incredibly useful.
Yes, that is a niche in gift giving, is something with incredibly high utility, but that a common person wouldn't just have already. I'm trying to think of other examples of that. For some reason, my brain goes to air fryer, but that becomes amazingly universal. Everybody has an air fryer these days. Right. But that's an example of that. Find something that is very useful, but is so niche that nobody's ever going to go out and actually buy it for themselves.
I remember when I got as a wedding gift, it was one family gave us a cute little holder that held a roll of U.S. postage stamps inside of it.
Ah, that's clever because, I don't even know if I have a stamp in my house or where it would be. But if I had a spot for it, if I had a useful little kitschy thing that held postage stamps, then I would always know where my postage stamps were.
And it held a roll of postage stamps in it. So it was, it was of significant financial value that they gave to us. And then we used it when we sent out our thank you cards after the wedding. And I kept thinking of these people that gave us this thoughtful, useful gift that now came in handy.
You are so old. Nobody mails anything anymore.
Okay. I don't know where our point of making this transition, I think, is generational. I definitely came from the generation where you were still expected to send out cards as thank yous after your wedding gifts.
I guarantee that we sent out actual hand-signed thank you cards to all of our wedding gifts as well. I was just razzing you for being old, man.
I know.
I
can't
remember
remember. But if someone had given you a roll
time.
of stamps at your wedding, as you put every one on an envelope you were sending out your thank yous, you're like, oh, that was useful. I'm glad they gave me that.
I'll tell you right now,
I don't have to spend money on stamps.
The only time we mail out anything is we mail out Christmas cards once a year, and I get a roll of Christmas stamps. And guess what? If I have to mail anything for the rest of the year, you're getting a Santa Claus stamp. I don't care if it is July.
All right, let's go up to the next tier. So this is the $20 to $100 tier. Now we're getting outside of the acquaintances and the office party kind of thing, and getting more into
these people.
Right, you know these people. These are your primary party guests, your close friends. those kinds of things.
Okay. Yes.
I don't know that I have great things for this, but our go-to,
yeah.
like for a kid's birthday party, is like a good Lego set.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I think that's the only gift that my kids give to their friends when they go over there is a random, whatever the $35 Lego set is that's at Walmart at the time.
Perfect. Which represents, like an hour and a half worth of work. That's the level of effort you're putting into that.
So this one's just more focused, right? The idea is that you should know these people. You have insider information into their life. And so the amount of thoughtfulness that you put in there should be more than just arbitrary. It's not necessarily about universally acceptance anymore for me. Now it's about, okay, this person, I know this person, and now I'm trying to bring utility into their life. Like, I don't know maybe enough about them to get them something super thoughtful, but I know enough about them to get them something that they might find useful.
Yeah, or some fun.
So for me, the go-to for this one, I'm not going to lie, I had female exclusive coworkers for the last 5 years. And so one of the things that I've gone with is a self-care basket in like air quotes. So it's stuff like, fancy soaps, like a bath bomb. Not going to lie, this is very much influenced by what my wife says. This is probably a good gift basket for. Okay. It's all like it. Toiletries and things, but then I will throw in a book. And this is why my shelf doesn't have, I can't remember the title of the first book of the Wheel of Time, the Eye of the World. This is why my shelf doesn't have the Eye of the World on it, is because I have bought and given away. I keep giving away that book as part of these gifts so many times. I've probably bought it 5 times. And so I'll get this basket that itself is worth, in the price range where, this is a thoughtful gift. And then I'll just slide in this book. It's like, here, now you can have a fancy bubble bath and maybe read a good book while you're there. But if they don't like the book, that's fine. The basket itself is enough of a gift to justify it.
I love it. I think for me, the one of that is, since I frequent, game stores where I go to play Magic, the walls are almost always lined with like not the grocery store kind of board games, but like the good kind of board games that win awards and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I'll frequently have a go-to amongst that set that I'll buy and gift to someone that they're unlikely to own, but if they ever bother to get it out and play it, that they'll enjoy and have a good time.
This is a great example. If you know the person, you know their hobbies, it doesn't matter what the hobby is. There is a gift in the $20 to $100 price range for that hobby. Like, if you know a person that plays Magic or card games in their life, you can easily spend $60 on a really nice like deck box, and they will very much appreciate receiving it.
Yeah. Good example. My father-in-law is a huge golfer, and while $100 won't buy you like a nice golf club, it can get you some kind of like practice accessory or some new gloves or something like that.
You can get a box of personalized balls, some tees, and maybe some club covers or something for $100.
You're better at this than you think. A cozy hoodie, you can almost never go wrong with one of those. I think my favorite at this price point, although it's almost out now because it's so hard to come by, but an SNES Classic. That's a good one.
Yes, the Super. Well, yeah. I mean, anybody our generation, they're going to love that Super Nintendo. Absolutely.
All right, so this brings us up to the third tier, which is like the 100 to 200 range. What are the occasions you would say where you actually go into this?
Oof. Now, this is top shelf, honestly, for me. Like, this is somebody that's not your spouse. Frankly, this is right. Best friends. This is people you really care about. And
I think family members, wedding gifts, those kinds of things.
Family members only if you're doing a 1-to-1, like you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
If you're having to buy for everybody, no, absolutely not. We're not spending this much money on them. But at this price range, you know these people. If you're going to spend $200 on somebody, like this is somebody that you know. And so therefore, it's a lot less about what you purchased for this person and a lot more about how much time and effort did you put into thinking about something that this person would like.
My wife is so good at this because she loves to craft and sew and knit and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing about handcrafted gifts is that even if they aren't particularly useful, they're immune from that kind of criticism.
Okay. So
it's obvious you spent a lot of time making this custom one-off gift just for me.
So I'm not going to lie. You fall into this price range for me, right? And one of
Right?
the, I feel like you mentioned the Mutavaults. Honestly, Ben, I do not remember gifting you a playset of Mutavaults. I'm glad that you still value them. One of the few gifts that I remember giving you was the amount of time and effort I put into making that the spell book. Because at one point on this podcast, we talked about what 8 cards of Magic define you as a player.
Yes, the signature spell book. So we needed a frame to put up the cards that we feel like define our experience with Magic the Gathering.
Yes, and so it was 2 or 3 days where I had to like do careful measuring and like made some fancy things and had to box up and ship it to you. And I made you that frame. I wish I'd gone and actually bought the cards. I had a good excuse why I didn't buy the cards, but at the same time, I feel like because, again, at this price point, it's about the thoughtfulness, right? So this is something that we had discussed. This is something that you're not going to do for yourself.
And it definitely satisfied that. Josh, you keep saying you're not good at this, but you are good at it. You are good at it. You just compare yourself to Nicole. I got that thing and I loved it. And I immediately went through my collection and got out the cards for my signature spellbook. And for the ones I didn't have, I bought them like within a few days. And they all arrived and I put them on that thing and I hung it in the wall in my bedroom above where we record the podcast. And I see it every time we record. And yeah.
So maybe I'm good at gift giving for the handful of people that I really care about. And also maybe the other end of the spectrum, I'm comparing myself to the queen of all gift givers, which is my wife.
Yeah. For me, sometimes in this space, it's just a useful item that you always are in need of. Like a set of Apple AirPods. Like those have a finite shelf life, but they're useful. You use them all the time and eventually the batteries are going to wear out.
I am holding up right now, listeners, the little case where my Raycon everyday earbuds live in. And this is a gift that Ben bought me after I complained on this podcast that I didn't like the headphones that I currently had. And he bought me these things. And I'm not going to lie. I was skeptical. When I first got these, this is the reason I hadn't pulled the trigger myself is like, I don't know if they're separated. I could lose one. I have had these for almost, when did you get these for me? Like, I don't remember.
I can't remember.
I wear these every day. I cannot emphasize this enough. I carry this carrying case around with me everywhere I go. This is now, this is unfathomable for me, but I had for the longest time 3 things. This is my 3-item checklist whenever I left my house. It was keys, wallet, phone. Done. I have everything. Everything else is replaceable. Those are the 3 most important things. And I added to that
list.
This is the 4th thing on my checklist. I have my keys, I have my wallet, I have my phone, I have my earbuds. Ben, like you have added like 25% of the most important things that I carry around on my person, and I cannot thank you enough for that.
Yeah. I think another one that falls well in this space is a good experience. One year for Christmas when one of my siblings was assigned to me, my oldest sister, she gave our family a gift card. She researched in our area and found a local escape room and bought a gift card to that escape room and sent it to us. And it was enough for our whole family to go and do an escape room experience. And we'd never done that together, our whole family. And we probably wouldn't have otherwise. But because she gave us this, it was a little bit of a chore, an assignment. But we went and had a great time. And I was so appreciative of the thoughtfulness and the effort that she went through to make that happen.
That's funny because if you had an awful time at the escape room, then you'd be able to assign the blame to her specifically. So that was a real coin flip of a gift that she gave you.
You know, that's the same if I'd gotten you those earbuds that I'd never actually tried myself and like they hurt your ears or you didn't like them or they didn't quite fill the thing. They'd sit in a corner, gather dust somewhere and you go, oh yeah, those crappy earbuds that Ben got me.
Ooh, that's true.
There's a lot of risk in this tier.
So it's not the tier of the price, but the tier of the relationship with the person. It's very high risk, high reward kind of territory. I remember like for my wife, I bought her a stand mixer and like she didn't think it was the greatest gift in the world, but she has used it like for the years since we've gotten it. So it's provided an enormous amount of utility. There was another time that I researched like for a very long time trying to find her a good gift, and I got her a Scottish title. And so she is Lady Nicole because she owns a square foot of Scotland somewhere. And like it's hanging on the wall right here. And she's like, oh, great, thanks. Like that did not land at all. She's like, oh, this is cute and kitschy. And I appreciate the time that you put into it, but I don't care for the actual thing that it is. She never brings it up. So that was I don't
know. I think I think the risk is part of the value, that because you're taking a risk, that gives the ones that hit more punch.
I see. Okay. Yeah, because you kind of have to go out on a limb because I get what you're saying. I don't know if I can articulate it well, but just the amount of effort that you're putting in, by almost definition, it's so deep into this person. There's a possibility that you miss entirely because you're now having to basically, it's the wife simulator, right? How good is my wife simulator? Like, let me simulate what my life would really enjoy that I haven't already purchased for her, that she hasn't already purchased for herself.
So there's a sweet spot. Apple Corporation has made their entire business model out of this. It isn't figure out what people need and make that. It's think of something new that people don't know that they need yet.
Yes.
And that's the hardest space to give gifts in. I remember early on in our marriage, my family got us this gift that was this handmade blanket that was made out of upholstery fabric and flannel. And it was enormous and really heavy. And for a young guy, it just wasn't that exciting to me. But man, has that thing turned out to be useful. And I wish I could go back in time and imbue in my old self, you are going to find this thing so useful and use it so many times in so many ways over the next 3 decades that you're going to be constantly grateful for this. And every time you see it, you're going to think of all the time and effort that went into making it and feel gratitude in your heart. Now, transmit to them that emotion and gratitude as you thank them for it. Because at the time, I think I looked at it like it was a pair of pink bunny pajamas.
My wife at one point bought me a big blanket. It's a big orange. It's orange on one side and fleece on the other. And at the time I was like, oh, yay, a blanket. But here's the thing. This blanket is probably 18 feet by 18 feet. Like, this blanket is enormous. It's the size of a car. I constantly say that to my kids. This blanket is the size of a car. Why do I have this tiny corner of it? Stop hogging the whole thing. And I didn't realize that I needed it at that time because we had a big-ish blanket, but it would never cover everybody as we were all sitting on the couch as a family watching TV. And this one does. Handily covers any living thing that is on the couch. It's
so cozy and lovely. My blanket, we call it the super emergency blanket, and we make a point out of keeping it clean and keeping it in the back of the car. And if we ever have an occasion where we need a blanket, it is our go-to. We've used it camping. It's the picnic blanket. We lay on it and watch fireworks. We put it on a cold kid when they're cold in the backseat of the car. It is so useful, and I've used it so many ways, and I'm so grateful to everyone that put the time into making that.
I think we just nailed it. I think the $100 to $200 range is like a big fancy blanket.
Well, you mentioned a stand mixer. I got one for my wedding, and it was a KitchenAid stand mixer, and yes. I use that thing all the time. And not only when I use it, not only is it useful, but I think of the person that gave it to me. I think that's kind of the best thing. My mother-in-law got me a Blendtec blender, like the ones that there's all the videos on YouTube of guys like blending up iPhones in, like of those. Yes.
It's got like a transmission in it. It's like all hardcore.
Yes. I freaking love that thing. And every time I use it, I think of my mother-in-law, and I just appreciate that she went to the effort to get me that.
Oh, that's nice. You're a very people person, Ben.
So, like we've said, there is a risk that you'll get it wrong. You could get, there's bad gifts. You can get cheap crap pretending to be a good thing, which is like pretending to be a tier higher than you are. Don't do that. Like, don't get somebody some imitation knockoff AirPods, because then they're just gonna hate you.
Yeah.
Don't get them something that's a chore. A gift card's kind of like that. Like, hey, I gave you some money, but I didn't have time to like think of something thoughtful, so so you do your own shopping. I don't know.
Don't knock gift cards, man. I think all right. So universal gift cards, I kind of agree. Don't buy anybody those prepaid Visa cards. Those are garbage. Don't just give them the cash if you're going to get them that. But if it's a gift card to a specific thing, I think that's okay. I think that's okay in the lower tiers anyway, because then at least it's like, oh, I want to give you money, but I want you to spend that money on this thing. I want you to spend it on entertainment. I want you to spend it on like a nice meal for yourself. I want you to spend it on something you need. I don't know. I maybe the less universal, the better. But then it becomes, oh man. You're just realizing, I'm realizing now as you said that there is this bell curve of gift cards, because Amazon gift card is way too universal, but like a Titleist gift card is way too niche. And so there's got to be this happy medium of like, oh, this gift card is useful enough that I'll actually use it without letting it rot in my junk drawer for the next 3 years.
Yeah. Great. I wonder if that's how the retailers feel about that. Like, do they want you to use it, or is that just free money for them? It's like stamp collectors. You've paid the U.S. Postal Service for a service that you're never going to collect on.
I'm not going to lie to you, Ben. I have a Total Wine gift card that's been in my junk drawer probably for 2 years. I would love to use that, but I'm not near a Total Wine. If that had been a Bevmo gift card, I'd have used it 5 times by now.
Okay, here's a dark horse gift idea. What do you think about pets as gifts?
Oh, terrible. No, terrible. Now, because it's here.
There's the potential here for it to be the best gift ever.
Oh, but
also the worst gift ever.
This has got to be a 90-10 split. 10% of the chance it's going to be the greatest gift that you've ever given this person ever, and nothing will ever compare to it ever again. 90% of the time, I have now made you responsible for another life, and you better take it seriously.
You can imagine a scene you've seen on some like Hallmark movie as you've been flicking through the channels where giving a pet as a gift is either the most endearing, thoughtful, beautiful gift you've ever seen, or it's some drunk absentee father showing up and trying to win his place back into the hearts of his children to make up for all the years of neglect and abuse.
Yep, and it's the kids will love the dog and the wife will hate it because she's the one that has to deal with it, and she knows that, and she also knows that she can't get rid of it because then she's the bad guy. Dad got us a dog, you got rid of the dog. Like that's just a war waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm going to add to your list. Super terrible gifts to give somebody is ultra high dollar value. I would never presume to go out and buy a car and put one of those giant bows on it and park it in the driveway and then give it to my wife as a gift.
That kind of decision yes. Ooh, I love it. Yeah, that's an interesting category. Even with some you love the most dear, like that decision can't be pushed into the realm of gift giving where it becomes unilateral because you can't. Yeah.
I mean, if you are in a place financially where giving a car to your significant other as a gift is something that you can do, that's great and wonderful for you. You had better be damn sure you know exactly the year, make, model, and options that she wants on that car, because if it's not, she's just going to be mad at you for not taking her to the dealership.
Yeah.
Why did you get the white trim instead of the leather trim? How dare you?
Why do holiday commercials surrounding car purchases try to sell us that narrative that we can do that and get away with it?
Because there is a non-zero amount of people in the world that see that commercial and go, you know what? I want my wife to have that look on her face when I go to this amount of effort to buy her something.
Yeah, there's a whole class of gifts like clothing items that might not fit well or be their style. Phone, like maybe if you were totally invested in the Google Chrome ecosystem and I bought you an iPhone, like it.
I completely agree with you. I'm actually going to restate my previous statement because I recognize the male default thinking in my voice when I said it. Like, there are non-zero amount of people that see that commercial and go, ooh, I want that look on my husband's face when I buy him that car.
What have you done? I can't believe you've done this.
There is an SNL skit where they do that. The guy's like, hello, look, it's a new Lexus. And the wife immediately goes, what are you doing? We can't afford this.
All right. Link in the show notes. I want to try to wrap it up. So we're about to go into the holiday gift giving season. We all have this pyramid of friends. We all have the social obligations that lie before us, and the rotations and the office parties and all of the things that are about to happen. How can we get a little less bad at gift giving?
I don't know if we solved that here on the podcast, but I'll tell you what we did do is you gave me new frameworks in which to approach this problem. And maybe some of the things that I said, we'll give that to other people. So between the two of us, I don't know, we've talked at length about this complex social dynamic problem, which is distilling our relationship into a physical item. Maybe if one person has a little bit of a leg up or has as initial starting point or has a better process by which to approach this issue, then I think we've achieved our objective here.
Well done. I like defining victory criteria that are completely undefinable and therefore we can declare victory. Congratulations, Bad at Magic Podcast. We solved gift giving.
We did it again. Man, we're good at this, Ben.
Well, if you have some tips you'd like to share, you can go on our Facebook page or our subreddit and share your ideas, your criticisms, your brilliant thoughts, and we'd love to hear from you.
If you like what we do, consider sharing us with a friend. If you like us, maybe your friends will like us too. If you really want to show us some love, consider taking your phone out of your pocket and giving us a good review on the podcast player of your choice. It's amazing the visibility we get from that, and thank you if you already have. And if you want to question me and Ben's love for each other versus our love for our spouses from now until the end of time, consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page.
And until next time, try to be a little less bad at magic. ZYXWVUTSRQPONMLKJHGFEDCBA.
Lord and Lady, that was so much faster than I expected it to be.